Hello, happy Friday, everyone. We're back, Heavy Metallurgy, and this week we have another fantastic guest, being my friend Andrew Nechochwen from super talented, endlessly prolific songwriter, singer, musician for let's see if I get all these right. Nechochwen,
Oh, jeez.
Ironflame, Brimstone Coven, and Icarus Witch currently, unless there's other things going on that I'm not aware of at the moment.
That's it currently. You got it.
That is a great list, Andrew. There's some cool bands there for sure.
Oh, thank you very much, Alan. I appreciate that.
You know what? The Icarus Witch, I realize that it somehow evaded me. Hearing you're on the newest one, right? Not any before that?
Correct.
I was listening to it earlier today and very impressed as always.
Thanks, man. We had a lot of fun doing that.
Always fantastic.
Yeah, I need to check that one out. I've heard some of their older albums. I always thought it was a pretty cool band, but I lost track of them, so I got some catching up to do there.
There was a period of silence there for a while. There was a regrouping period, but yeah, that one came out in 2018, October 2018. So
I will get caught up.
And also, I mean, we might as well, while we're here, let's talk about what's going on. I mean, obviously, in the Bindrune camp and news, we're planning on a big release coming up, the new Nechochwen album.
Yeah.
I had it wrote down. I can never remember the pronunciation unless I look at it. Kenwa or
Kanawha.
Yeah.
Kanawha Black.
Kanawha Black.
Yes.
Coming out hopefully this year, depending on pressing plants. But
it's all about them. We're at their mercy right now.
We're at their mercy, but we're gonna hopefully figure something out with that. But humongously great album, and of course my second favorite, Ironflame. Big fan of what you've been producing with Ironflame. You kind of start off as a solo artist, and it is over the course of 3 albums evolved into kind of a band. Like you threw guys together to play live, and it's kind of stuck, hasn't it?
It's a full-fledged band now. Yeah. Great group of guys, and they are the band. I mean, I couldn't do anything that I do really without them other than just record, and, that only takes you so far, I guess. But, yeah, those guys are indispensable to me. I couldn't ask for a better group of guys to do this. They're 10,000 times the musicians that I ever could be, skill level wise, and on top of that, all they're great dudes. And we have a blast together. It's super fun every single time, and it's pretty much a dream come true.
Yeah. So how is that working? Are you still predominantly the sole songwriter in that, or is the guys kind of stepping in a little bit more now that they're a little more involved?
Well, it started out, I was having the first album had guest solo guitar players, and on the second one, I just stuck with one of those guys from the first album, which was Jim Dofka, and he was in the original live lineup. And once he left, then I just kind of shifted all the solo duties, composing and recording, to the live guitar players, being Quinn Lucas and Jesse Scott. So they've been doing all the solos ever since. They did all the solos on the last album, Blood Red Victory, and they're doing all the solo work on the new album that we're working on currently.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good to hear. If anybody has missed Ironflame, definitely check them out. All 3 of those albums are very good, really fun.
Excellent.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
The songs are fun. They're well written. I love that you wear your influences on your sleeve. I mean, obviously hear the Maiden in that stuff, and it's fantastic. Great. Excellent. Every album has been great, and I can't wait to hear what the future brings.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Brimstone Coven, another band that is doing some excellent things. 4 albums now?
I think.
4 albums?
I lose track. We're on our 10th year, so and I think November is our 10-year anniversary. So, yeah, it's hard to keep track. And when Metal Blade picked us up, they kind of took 2 previous recordings and mashed them into one, so it gets kind of weird. But we're on 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 full lengths at this point, and we're in the demoing stages of album number 5, technically.
Cool. The thing I really like about that project, I was catching up on a couple of the albums last night, and each one sounds like you guys, but it's a little different. And I think that's really cool. I mean, you hear all sorts of 70s influences. I hear some Kiss in there. I hear some Danzig in there. I hear some Thin Lizzy in there. Just good old stoner traditional doom in there. It's just a great mix. Really good songwriting, and the excellent dual vocal harmonies, shared vocal duties is a nice touch.
And that's all the guitar player, Corey Roth. That's all his songwriting, composing, everything. He is the total brainchild behind that brilliant project. It's an honor to be in it.
Excellent guitar player. Great solos. He's got a good flair and a unique voice for sure.
Absolutely agree.
And of course, Icarus Witch recently joined that band a couple of years ago. I just checked out the new album today. I'm a little late to the party on that one.
Today. All right, better late than never.
Better late than never, and it again holds up. Traditional metal feel, well-written songs. Of course, Andrew, your vocals are fantastic as always.
Thank you.
How has it been joining a fourth band? Busy?
Well, it's all about time management. If you're good at time management, you can give everything its proper time and not cheat anyone or anything. I think the proof's in the pudding, and all those
absolutely
said endeavors have done nothing but grown during the time that I've been in them. So, if you give something proper care, you don't have to, hover over it and care for it constantly. It's just like, nurturing a plant or whatever, as long as you give it what it needs and don't cheat it, then it grows on its own. So it's really all about that. And I think a lot about that. I'm constantly thinking about the time management aspect, like, well, this band is playing this many shows. I don't want to cheat this band out of stage time. We got to give them their equal time, and the same goes with writing and composing. Who's in the studio? Who's due for a new album? Who needs to promote the new album? It's just something you just gotta kind of constantly have in your peripheral, and if you do that, it becomes a habit like anything else, and it's easy to manage. I think
it makes it easier too that you've surrounded yourself with a community of excellent musicians and good people.
I would totally agree. It all depends upon them. It really does.
Yep. And the quality is there in spades. So it makes it easier to want to manage that time,
Yeah, I would agree. Absolutely.
Before we jump into our main topic, I guess we'd all just kind of like to extend our condolences to all the fallen musicians this week. We lost Mike Howe, we lost Joey Jordanson, and we lost Dusty Hill from ZZ Top. Rest in peace.
Terrible week.
Times are tough, man. The old guard's getting old, and
it's true.
People, that's just natural part of life, I guess. But it's a shock, and it's a bummer. And
they're all legends in their own rights.
They are. Absolutely. Again, endless talent, and whether you're into these bands or not, all of them have been long-standing believers in what they do, and they dedicated their lives to enriching ours, which is to be entirely, completely commendable and to be respected. And I hope their families and friends and bandmates are going to pull through this time okay. But
yep. Best wishes to friends and family.
Cheers to them. But we're here. Andrew has brought a very cool topic to the show today. What's your topic, Andrew? What were your thoughts behind this?
Mystery. Well, it's kind of like a vague concept, and that's why when I was trying to explain it to you via text, I was like, he's not going to get what I'm talking about here. But bands that intrigued you at any given time. I mean, all the bands that I'm going to talk about are what I would call pre-internet era albums and bands, because back then it was easy. I think you said it in the hype post. It was easy to hide behind a veil of mystery because you couldn't log on and see what color underwear that musician was wearing that day, like it is now. So much of the mystery is gone now because what any person is doing at any given moment of their life now with social media and everything else. So back then, pre-internet, I'm sure Alan knows as much as Marty knows, tape trading days, old distro days when these places like Nuclear Blast and Relapse and all these underground labels that are now, pretty formidable labels were in their infancy, and they were just as underground as the bands that they were promoting. You were looking at a two-sided Xeroxed sheet of, titles in this distribution list, and that you just had to go off of it. You had to go off the band name, the album title, and the description, like the genre that they were described as, and just hope that the album showed up. And number one, that it showed up at all, because international shipping was a roll of the dice back then too, and that when it showed up, it didn't totally suck.
Right. And another thing back then too was record labels. I mean, I think record labels, you had to trust. I mean, if you had a good string of bands that you bought from Noise International, chances are you're going to keep buying Noise International bands or Metal Blade or whoever at the time.
I think that's an ethos that's as old as the era that we're talking about, and people always say that about Binderune, that I know if something's on Binderune, I'm going to like it because of the standard that's upheld. You don't put out just anything for the sake of, this demographic of people will definitely like this, and I'll definitely sell a lot of copies of this. That doesn't mean jack to you, and it never has, which takes a lot of integrity to do that, because that definitely does not pay the bills, and that.
I would say a lot of integrity and money.
But you do it nonetheless, and you've been doing it this whole time, and there are people out there, you're doing it, so you may not hear it as much as someone like me who's out on the street, but I hear it more often than you think, that people recognize that, but I would say that nowadays that's kind of a rare thing, and that I don't necessarily buy things based on the label that they're on anymore. I used to be able to, like you're saying.
It's not safe anymore.
Noise, Nuclear Blast, Century Media back in the day. There was a lot of labels that I'd be like, if it's on this, it's going to be good. I can't remember the last time I thought that, for what it's worth,
Yep.
But, just bands, there had to be bands that, like, I think everyone that was into underground music back in the 90s or late 80s can relate to getting something and loving it and wanting more and wanting to know everything about the band. And either, there's very little information on the inlay card and the J card of the tape, or it's a dubbed cassette that's been traded 3 or 4 times, and all you have is the title. Sometimes you don't even have that. Sometimes some of my favorite bands were turned on to me by compilation tapes that people made, and sometimes I had to ask and hunt and look for years to be like, guys, does anybody know who this band is, what this song is? I've worshipped it for years and I have no idea who it is.
Yeah.
So that's the element of mystery that I'm talking about.
Right.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good point, Andrew. And actually, it's funny, on the video I posted earlier this week over on my channel, somebody left a comment. It's just like, I've been trying to figure out what this unlabeled cassette tape of mine was for like 20 years. And it's one of the things that you just played on your channel. I finally know who this band is.
Oh, dude, the sense of victory. When you finally find out who that is, right?
Yeah, I was like, dude, that's so cool. It's awesome that you finally figured out who it was, because that kind of thing can be impossible to ever sort out without just stumbling into it.
Yes, and you change that guy's life or girl's life, whatever, by it finally revealing the identity of that band and that song. That's awesome.
He can finally fill in the J card on that cassette tape.
Yes,
buy the CD.
It's a great thing.
Well, Andrew, why don't you start us off on this little discussion
Okay, well, I'm going to get the awkward one out of the way first because I think it's the only one that I don't actually have something to hold up and produce. But it was the first one I thought of because it just always stuck in my mind. It was a demo from 1992, and it was a Norwegian band called Perdition Hearse. And if y'all were around back in that day, 92, early 90s, there was a tiny little label that I think may have been out of California. Correct me if I'm wrong, Marty. Called Wild Rags.
Yeah. Yep.
And they were very good at finding great underground music from Europe, just basically anywhere overseas compared to here, and putting their demos out and distributing them here in the U.S. And somehow, some way, I never owned the demo. I think somebody let me borrow it. The demo was called, I think it's pronounced Malafide, M-A-L-A, 2 words, M-A-L-A-F-I-D-E. And it was the first taste of black metal that I ever received. Like I told you earlier, Marty, like I heard Venom. I had a couple of Venom tapes, and to me, Venom was Venom, and I didn't realize Venom like was one of the inventors of what they called modern black metal. And I just, when I heard this Perdition Hearse demo, I didn't know what I was hearing, basically, because I was into death metal and grindcore at the time, and this was so far removed from that. It was extreme, and it was definitely satanic. It had Satan and burning flames in the background on the hand-drawn cover. And it was a textbook introduction definition of black metal, because the intro was a classical guitar with some spoken word in Norwegian over top of it. Some creepy keyboards came in, and then from there it was an all-out, like, mid-pace to punk rock based, like, single note tremolo fest and high shrieking vocals, and all the elements to make black metal today what it is. But this was the first time that I was hearing it, so it changed my life, and I didn't even realize it until later what I was hearing was black metal, because I didn't get introduced to other black metal bands like Emperor and Early Enslaved, Cradle of Filth, and things like that until maybe 95, maybe 3 years later. So to me, this band was so unique. It wasn't a genre to me. It was just kind of a white whale. Like, it was just a unicorn.
Yep.
So it changed my life because of that. And I remember that the tape was so worn out that it had the warble, like the pitch warble.
Yeah.
And it's starting out with like beautiful classical guitar, and it's like it just added to the eeriness of it all, so it was like the total package to me. But and now I went back, I went on Metal Archives, and you can go on Metal Archives, you can go on YouTube and find the demo now, so if you're intrigued, look it up. But they repressed it a couple of different times on vinyl, on CD, and everything else, so it is available out there now. You may have to dig on Discogs or something like that for it, but it does exist.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Alan.
Okay. First one that popped to mind for me when I started thinking about this stuff was a band I stumbled on in the mid-90s as Armored Angel, who I've talked about a lot in the past.
And thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
You got me turned on the right track with that band.
This is one of those bands that, everybody that checks them out just seems to love them. I first checked them out through tape trading, like Andrew mentioned, and I did a big trade with a guy in Louisiana. This would have been in the summer of '97. And it was one of those deals where we each filled 8 90-minute TDK tapes with just as many demos and things as we could cram onto them for one another.
The best.
Yeah, it just takes you forever to dig through that stuff when it comes. It's just like your own little treasure box when it shows up in the mail eventually. And he had put a bunch of Armored Angel demos on there. I don't even remember if I had requested them or he just added them. I might have requested them. I had heard the band's name here and there, but I'd never heard a note by them. But regardless, they're all on these tapes, and just, I was immediately floored by the band. A couple of their demos, are very heavy thrash, kind of in the destruction vein. The later, gets into this heavier bolt thrower sounding death metal, but it's got this they have like a very kind of strange, almost trance-inducing way with their riff patterns and something. It's very repetitive. Really gets you into a very specific mindset that has that mysterious vibe about it. Immediately fell in love with the band. I just played those demos over and over. It took forever to get through the rest of those tapes because I couldn't stop playing the one that had all the Armored Angel stuff crammed onto it. And so I immediately wanted to find out more about the band, but it's an Australian band that I had no idea at the time, really only had a handful of demos that had been released over about a 10-year period. And so finding out anything about them was a real uphill climb. Even though this was, summer of 97, the internet was still getting developed in terms of content back then. There was no YouTube. eBay was barely up and running. Amazon was not really a thing just yet. So yeah, you couldn't just hop on. The resources we use today didn't exist on the internet. I could type Armored Angel into Yahoo or GeoCities, and
I was going to bring up GeoCities.
I'd find a scrap of information here. Okay, they're Australian. Find another scrap of information here that referenced, they had this one mini LP Mysterium, but it was just really piecing things together a little here and a little there. I know when I went to the Milwaukee Metal Fest in the summer of 90, or it was May of 99, I guess. Yeah, that was like my top priority. I mean, yes, to see bands, but second, to hit every and finally get some real Armor stuff. That was the number one thing on my shopping list. That whole festival, I found this one CD. It's the only thing I found, and it just best find of the whole festival.
Nice.
And so, it led to, years of, I ended up, writing letters to, band members in Australia when I finally stumbled across an address in an old zine article. I'm just like, who knows if this is the right address, but let's take it to the post office, send it to Australia, and pray that I'm not, harassing some 62-year-old lady or something. It was, very much one of those bands that, their sound has that kind of mysterious quality to it. Finding information about them was very difficult, because they never really got any international recognition of any type. And, about the time I was looking for stuff by them was about the time they were, doing their last recording and then split up, which didn't make it any easier.
Right.
So, in terms of bands that just had, this real mysterious, completely, behind this wall that, was very hard to finally break through. Armored Angel was the first thing that popped to my mind.
It's funny that you bring them up because that's another band that I would often see in distribution catalogs, and I remember thinking, man, that's a gnarly name. I wonder if they sound like Armored Saint and Death Angel had a baby.
Yep. Yeah, you had Armored Angel, you had, just the band Saint, you had Armored Saint, you had, there was lots of, it was easy to get confused if you weren't paying attention to what was listed.
I think that's the coolest amalgamation of those names, but, and I never did get to check them out. That's one that passed me by, so I'm glad you brought them up. Now I'm going to check them out.
They're good.
I think you'll like it, absolutely. All right, Marty, what have you got to lead us off with here?
Well, for me, my descent, living up in northern Michigan, as a teenager, there was a local radio station here, a college radio station, WNMC. They had a metal show, and my friend started listening to that and turning, taping it, and then trying to turn me on to some bands. And being up here in northern Michigan, we were always years behind the curve as far as what's happening down south. As a young guy getting into thrash and this other stuff, I basically had to go with, things that a friend would turn me on to. I'd go to the local Camelot Records and find that band, just start buying up stuff on those record labels. So my connection with the underground, with zines and, writing letters and tape trading and video trading, all that shit didn't happen until just before the mid 90s when I started doing Wormgear zine with some friends. But one of these early bands, and my take on this whole thing was a lot of the stuff I'm going to show was easy to get, but the mystery was something that took me on a transportative journey. So that's kind of how I took it. I couldn't really get into the, writing letters and trying to scramble and find out stuff. The mystery was presented by the band and it impacted how I felt. So that's kind of how I interpreted this pile of stuff I'm going to show you guys. But first up for me, and the first time I heard this band, I laughed at the vocals. Thought it was the dumbest shit I ever heard. It sounded ridiculous until I ended up buying it on tape first. But Mercyful Fates, Don't Break the Oath. This would be an early album in the mystery journey for me, because when I finally sat and listened to this and took in this artwork, I mean, King coming out of that satanic church with his arms spread in a welcoming manner, reading the song titles, reading the lyrics on this, I thought, holy shit, it blew my stupid little mind, to be completely honest. And listening to this music, the way Denner and Sherman's riffs interacted, the way they stacked their harmonies, they traded their solos. I mean, some of the riffs and some of these little melody lines they would do sounded like demons laughing to me. They just had they're like my all-time favorite guitar duo for sure. And just the whole atmosphere, just this, reading these lyrics and hearing King Diamond present them. I'm not a religious man, but when I was early in high school, I thought the devil was real after this. And this came out during the Satanic Panic. So, I mean, you were constantly being seen on, seeing evangelists on TV decrying Judas Priest and Venom and, bands, I'd heard Priest at that point, but I was just starting to get into Venom. This fit the era perfectly. It fit the spiritual climate of the 80s. This thing, it made me really connect true atmosphere and emotion and feeling with heavy music. A lot of, Priest, that early stuff, Motorhead, it's all, it's got a driving feel to it. It's fist pumping. It's a completely different reaction to something like this.
It's human. And
human.
This, I could, you picked a great one because it doesn't get much more otherworldly, but somehow earthly and satanic at the same time. I could totally see how you felt like Satan was real after this.
Yep.
Like the atmosphere that band built was just so effortlessly real that it wasn't like anything else. And it's still, to this day, it's just, I vividly remember when the first Ghost album came out. And I'm not a gigantic Ghost fan. I don't know about anybody else here. But I remember hearing the first album and thinking, wow, these guys are really doing their best to try and mimic Fate. Like that,
I got a Blue Oyster Cult vibe.
Fate,
I got a Blue Oyster Cult vibe from it. I'm like, I'd rather listen to Blue Oyster Cult than this.
Vocally, I could hear the Blue Oyster Cult thing for sure.
Yeah.
But just the riffing in that first album, I just thought, man, these guys listen to nothing but Fate, and they're just trying to recreate it as best that they can. But no one has ever recreated especially those two guitar players, like you said. Those guys, they were like one unit. They were like
sharing a brain for sure.
Yeah. One cohesive soul on the guitar, and that has yet to be matched.
No, you listen to like their rehearsal demos, even when it's a little sloppy, they were so in sync.
Yes,
it's just
within themselves. Yes,
I sit, as later a musician, I sit back and I listen to this stuff. It's timeless, but I'm like, how in the fuck did they write this? I mean, How did this come out? I mean, they probably are children of hard rock and 70s stuff. I mean, there's no metal band influencing them other than, maybe Priest or, shit like that. But
right.
Mercyful Fate is, as far as I'm concerned, leagues beyond their influences. And they created something new and truly scary, and it whatever it was, it got me carving upside down crosses on my Trapper Keeper.
Nice. Yeah, I think one thing too that, I mean, yes, the music's top notch. It's one of the best albums ever recorded, bar none. That cover art just takes it to another level in terms of that, the whole sort of mystery and vagueness of it.
You talk about sucking you in.
Yeah,
it looks exactly how the album sounds.
Yes, it's menacing, it's foreboding. It can be taken as scary, but it also doesn't have to be. I mean, it's a simple picture in a way: some flames, a face, a hand. But you can read so much into that. You can think about it so many different ways. I have two versions of it hanging up in my office. I've got the original album over here, and I've got like one of the big wall banners over there for that art. It's arguably my favorite piece of heavy metal artwork that's ever been done. Because it's beautiful, it's simple, and it leaves, it just, your imagination runs wild looking at that. Is he condemning you to hell? Is he warning you, don't do this or I will come back for you?
Or is he inviting you in?
Is he making you an offer that maybe you ought to refuse but can't?
Exactly.
You could write entire stories about what is happening in that artwork. It's
the same could be said for Melissa. Very similar, excellent artwork.
Absolutely.
The artwork on Melissa, I may have told this story before, so I apologize. I only had like a crappy little copy of it, cassette. And I could not, it took me years to actually figure out what the fuck was on the cover of Melissa. When I looked at it, there's like the red light streaming out of like the
it's in motion, whatever it is, it's in motion. I kind of liked it,
Yeah, but to me, it looked like two, and again, some of this is probably the vertebrate paleontologist in me. It looked like two long bones. And so I'm thinking it's like a pile of bones from whoever Melissa was on this weird black spiky looking canvas or something. And it wasn't until later when I saw the full LP, that wasn't, hadn't been reissued 5 times where it was really dark. And I saw an original. I was just like looking, and I was just like, oh, I'm an idiot. So yeah, that one, the artwork, it's cool now that I see it, but I saw it wrong for too many years. So It's never had the same impact on me as Don't Break the Oath.
Okay, Andrew, you're up.
I'm up.
You're up.
Okay, well, I hope I'm not stealing your thunder here.
Not at all.
But this band is one of the most mysterious bands to me. I heard them in 1992, or it was probably 93, because I heard them first on a compilation, and it's another little American label called JL America. Do you remember that, Marty?
Oh, yeah.
And the band is called Master's Hammer. And we were discussing this. Sorry, I'm backwards. We were discussing this album a little bit last night. And I thought it was funny. See, sorry to steal your thunder, dude.
Don't be. No, I'm glad I picked extras, so we're good.
You referred to it as the Philemnice occultist.
Yep.
Now, I was going to refer to it as the Yillimnice occultist because on every other version besides this version, it's spelled with a J and not an F. And the reason being, this is a Czechoslovakian band. All the lyrics are in Czech. So these are just very poor translations for song titles to make it palatable to the English-speaking audience. Like I said, I heard this first on a JL America sampler cassette, and I was intrigued by the name. I love the name to this day. I think it's one of the best band names ever. And the translated song title on the comp was called Among the Hills, A Winding Way. And I was just getting enamored with the second wave of black metal at that time, so a song title like that was immediately luring me in, but then I heard it, and it's such an indescribable thing to somebody who hasn't heard it. There's so much going on in this thing musically. The riffs are not typical black metal riffs. They're definitely more in the early primal death metal vein, I would say. It's symphonic though. There's a lot of keyboards going on in there. They credit themselves as having a timpani player.
Yep.
And there's plenty of timpani in the album. But what really lured me in was they picked the perfect song to put on that compilation. Reason being, within a minute or so into the song, in between the verses, like I'm clearing my throat, there is audible coughing in that the vocalist caught, like like that in between these lines. So I'm thinking to myself, this is 93, digital recording isn't like a thing, but at the same time, there is a mute button and there is a fader button in recording, and you could turn that down. Why on earth did he leave these coughs in between these lines? So I'm intrigued already. That kind of sucked me in. Another riff came in that was just blended with the keyboard fantastically, and I was hooked there. Another cough followed that awesome riff. And in the breakdown, in the middle of it, I found out later that the whole album is a concept, and in the middle of this breakdown, the vocalist is playing the part of this witch who is talking to another character in the story, but I didn't know that, so he adopts this voice that is very high-pitched, and he starts cackling like an old witch, like in the middle of this breakdown that's supposed to be like a grim black metal song. You hear this so it intrigues me even further.
Yep.
Enough to buy the tape, as it were, back then, because I still do have the tape. So then I get the tape and I open it up and I see the band photo here.
They got Meatloaf and Adolf Hitler to unite for this.
Thank you. Meatloaf is definitely there. I'm just trying to figure out where my camera is here, but yeah, you got Meatloaf. Is this who you're calling Meatloaf here?
Yeah. It's a young Meatloaf.
See, I called him the human incarnation of an Oompa Loompa from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, if you look at him real close.
Yeah.
But then, as you can see, you've got Hitler's cooler brother, Shitler, right here, peeking out from the vegetation. He's got the same haircut, the same mustache, but he's a little younger. He's a little more hip. He's got the flannel on. But, I'm thinking, like, this is supposed to be a grim black metal band, and they're taking a daylight band photo in a garden. Like, that's not very grim. And then, I see the timpani player in here. Well, and I see that a drummer is credited too. But to this day, you listen to that recording, I swear up and down that is a drum machine, Marty.
You think?
That sounds like a drum machine to me. There's nothing human about those drum beats to me. I would love for somebody to show me live footage of this band and the drummer actually playing those drum beats, because I was in a drum machine band for a long time.
Me too.
The drum beats.
At least it's HR16B.
Like. That's right. I know what a Boss DR660 sounds like, and by God, I think that's on here. So you can see why this band was so intriguing to me, and continues to be. They're still an active band. They're still putting out music.
They're still really good.
It's very good. It's matured beautifully over time. But that will always be my favorite era because of the mystery and the intrigue involved.
Yep, I was completely blown away by there's keyboards, but the timpani, and there's like some other strange out of left field orchestration sprinkled into the songs, and it isn't on its own. It's part of the music, which makes it even more enchanting and weird. And the guy's really unique voice for 1993.
Incredibly.
I mean, these guys still don't really sound like anybody, but back then they sound like they're from another fucking planet.
Yes, the riffing grounds it all. It's what keeps you listening, because everything else is so otherworldly that it probably wouldn't be a palatable listen otherwise.
Yeah.
It's just a beautiful recipe, and I love it to this day.
Absolutely great pick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Alan,
you are up, my man.
All right. This is one, Andrew, you mentioned this band in passing. Marty, you did too. So, and Brian mentioned them in the chat just a couple of minutes ago. So I think it's a good time to bring this one up. Venom welcome to hell. Today, yes, we all get the joke and the tongue-in-cheek, over-the-top nature of it. Back in the day, not so much necessarily. Growing up in the rural South, there was always a satanic panic. It didn't matter what year it is. You were always going to hell if you weren't in church every day and all that kind of stuff. And and then you stumble across an album like this, and I had just seen the band on the Combat mail order things. I had gotten some record on Combat, and it had the whole checklist discography mail order thing inside it, and it had some of these Venom albums that hell, at the time I just thought they were on Combat. I didn't know they were being licensed from Neat Records or anything like that. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a cool name. That sounds like an interesting album. I'll keep an eye out for that. And I found it at a record show. Looked at it, it's like, oh, okay, shit just got real.
Nice.
And bought it, took it home. This was for dumb kid living in the country, and this would have been around 1990. Nobody at my school had heard of this band. They were metalheads. They were listening to evil stuff, but nobody had heard of this. I showed this to people and it freaked them out just looking at it. I had one friend that would not allow me to put the album on for him. He looked at it and was just like, don't play that. I was like, dude, it's actually not, I had played it a few times. It took me a couple of spins to, kind of start to get it. The song Angel Dust really clicked and I kept giving it more spins.
Great one. Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember showing it to, one of the guys in my rooms. Is like, here, you want to hear it? He's like, no. And he was just like, do not play that. I do not want to hear that record. I'm just like,
he was scared.
he legitimately was scared to hear the record.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, it was very much like what Marty described. In my high school, there were lots of kids that were afraid to listen to Ozzy Osbourne albums because they had heard all these rumors that there were backward messages and suicide solution that would make you kill yourself. I had a guy literally, one of his aunts or someone had given him an Ozzy Osbourne tape as like a birthday present. He took it and burned it because he was scared to listen to it. It sounds really dumb to us today, but people were legitimately afraid of some of this stuff. And I mean, you've got these guys going just looking all grim and evil with the axes and shit. And then you've got the little quote from the lyrics in the bottom. We're possessed by all that is evil. The death of your God we demand. We spit at the Virgin you worship and sit at Lord Satan's left hand. To be continued.
Ooh.
And
the plot thickens.
This was not any MTV kind of shit you were talking about. This was the real deal.
Right.
Back then, it's just like, I don't think Ozzy Osbourne or Judas Priest is going to cause me to, go in the bathroom and cut my wrists. I don't know about this one.
This one might.
This one, I'm going to keep the lights on and the door open while I'm playing it, just in case. But Venom. Again, we all know now that it was all, just sort of a laugh and a very over-the-top comic thing in a way. But at the time, this was, a very cult, very evil. This was as evil as it got.
But as raw as it sounds, I have to give shout out to Kronos because the bass solo in 1000 Days in Sodom is still mind-blowing to me. That bass tone in general that he got, and when that break came up and he did that little mini bass break, like I was mind blown. And my experience with that album was I got it dubbed. It was on a white instructional tape that was like for something else. You tape over stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was a white instructional tape that was taped over, and there was masking tape covering whatever the real silkscreen information on was the tape, and somebody wrote a gigantic pentagram on it and just said Venom welcome to hell. There were no song titles or anything, so
nice.
Again, added to the mystery to me.
Mm-hmm.
From that, and it was probably the same year. It was probably 1990 for me as well.
That band for me, again in the Satanic Panic when I landed with that band too, and though the lyrics were kind of cheesy, they were kind of well written, but they never really impacted me the same way that Mercyful Fate did.
Yeah.
Mercyful Fate seemed more real. Venom, Venom just
Venom was way more of a Motorhead type.
Yeah, they kind of embraced that punk aesthetic, and let's be honest, Abaddon or Abaddon or however you say his name, he's the worst drummer in metal. He just is. His meter is
There
fucking.
might be worse drummers. I mean,
His meter is fucking terrible. You watch the live shit. He is speeding up, slowing down. It's I don't know how. I mean, other than rehearsing together so much, you get good and you get used to that.
Right.
But I'm just like watching like the live stuff, the 7 Dates of Hell or whatever.
Yeah,
his meter is crap.
It's pretty brutal to watch. I would agree.
But such a great band, man. I mean, countless. I mean, those first 3 albums and some of Possessed were, constantly in rotation here too.
Oh yeah.
Yep. All right, Marty, over to you for a pick.
We've got next up. I was a little late to this band. I think the first album I heard, well, I can't remember to be honest, but it wasn't this one. But Bathory is another one of those mystery bands for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Just because when I started finally buying his albums, and researching back and getting the stuff, trying to find information on him, obviously the internet wasn't a thing, and you start finding interviews, and he was an enigma. He lied constantly. He told 0 truths about Bathory in press. I mean, you don't know what's true. He always referred to as us, or like there was multiple people. There might have been starting early, but it was basically him and his dad. Let's be honest. I mean, his dad was a producer from a lot of it. They recorded it in the family garage, Heaven Shore Studios, or in a garage. I'm assuming it was probably the family's garage.
Probably.
There's parts where he coughs in the sound booth. It's audible on the recordings, or on the early recordings. You can hear a lawnmower. I've seen interviews where he's like, "Oh, you can hear this part in this song. You can hear a lawnmower outside." I mean,
love it.
Again, that old school charm. There wasn't pro, audio tools to cut and paste and eliminate that stuff. Tape was precious. Probably didn't know what the fuck they were doing recording. So I mean, they just got what they could. They captured it the best way they could. Yeah. This album in particular for me is kind of the blueprint for second wave, especially the Norwegian stuff, or the Dark Throne. The Dark Throne aesthetic, I think, is pretty much. I mean, this Korthon is a legend. He influenced so much, and there's still bands coming out today that are, clinging hard to this formula.
Totally agree with that.
But yeah, I mean, that's one of those bands they wanted to find out more about, and the information you were being given by a Korthon was not on the up and up most of the time. So
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. That would be Andrew next.
Oh man. Well, this one, there's not a lot of mystery involved with it, but I wanted to mention it because I think not a lot of people know about it, so I thought just talking about it may bring some awareness. But there was some mystery involved. It's another band that I got turned on to from that very same JL America sampler. The band is called Deteriorate.
Yep. Good album.
Rotting in Hell. This is from 1993, and there was one song on there. It immediately floored me because it was really technical death metal, and I tried to research the band as well as I could back in those days, and all that I could find was a rumor that proved to be false. But I wanted to believe it because someone told me that this band was from West Virginia. And me being from West Virginia myself, I thought, are you serious? Like, these guys are near me? Someone in this state created this? So I kind of became quasi-obsessed with it. And it took me a long time to acquire the cassette, which I still have the cassette, the JL America version. What I was holding up is a reissue that's pretty recent. I think it might be from 2016 or something. And I think
it's on the Crypt, isn't it?
Dark Symphonies?
Oh, yeah. The Dark Symphonies and the Crypt, they're the same.
Okay. You would know better than I do. I'm woefully inept when it comes to stuff like that. But it's funny because I bought this just so I knew that I would have it digitally because I had the cassette for so long and I didn't want the cassette to rot in hell. But so I bought it and I didn't even realize until because I bought it and it was a busy time, and I'm sure you all have done this. You buy an old title and you just shelf it and you don't really think about it just because you know you own it from that point, and it's okay. I didn't realize that this is a 2 CD reissue. It's got the original recording on the first CD. The second CD is nothing but demo material, live demo material from a pro studio that I haven't even listened to yet. So I'm kind of like a little kid all over again.
Yeah.
I just realized that there's like a bonus raw album here that I have yet to absorb. But yeah, like I said, it was mysterious to me just because there was so little information on the band. I found out later they're actually from Pendle, I think it's Pendle, Pennsylvania, which is basically a suburb of Philly. So they're not close to me. They're almost as far away from me as you are to me, Marty. They're on the
other side of the state.
Right.
They're not like a Pittsburgh band that maybe you could forgive them for messing that up.
Yeah.
But the fact remains, this is a criminally underrated and underlooked technical death metal masterpiece to me. It's tight, it's technical, it's non-repetitive. The vocals are brutal. Everything about it is brutal. It's well produced. And I just don't understand why this band didn't blow up with Cannibal Corpse and Suffocation and everybody else, because to me they were worthy. They never got their due. They stuck around through the time period to where they should have gotten their due.
They changed their sound a lot. I think their next album was very much in the black metal vein, as they were kind of jumping.
It was half black metal, half death metal, and I own that too. And it's good, but it's not nearly as good as this.
Yeah.
I just wish they would have stuck to their guns and the right person would have heard them. I know it's all a case of fate and who you know and right place, right time kind of thing. I just wish the stars would have aligned for this band. So if you're a fan of tech death, definitely check out Deteriorate, Rotting in Hell if you've not already.
Cool.
Good one.
Don't know that one.
Alan,
you were up.
All right. So, yeah, this band really just oozes mysterious. They always did. And it's a long time, even into the internet age, before folks started to get a better handle on their material. And this is Italy's Death SS. The SS stands for Stephen Sylvester, the brainchild behind the band originally. So, yeah, it's not a National Socialist kind of thing. Although he probably knew that, writing it that way would, generate a little extra interest.
Totally.
Weird band. They, formed in the late 70s and had a very theatrical horror thing going on. Each band member had, kind of a classical monster movie persona in terms of makeup and stuff, which you can kind of see here. I don't remember who had which instrument, but you had werewolf on drums, mummy on bass, the vampire vocalist and stuff, and it was all very steeped in keeping the identity secret. And the music was very strange, sort of proto metal stuff. It's got a very weird sound to it that. It really helped define that aesthetic of Italian doom metal all the way through, the 1980s. Even though Death SS didn't release a ton of stuff in their original go, they still had a big impact on that country's heavy metal scene. And this was one of those that, like Andrew mentioned before, I'd see them listed on, Discog lists every now and then, and just like, that sounds kind of interesting. I'd see one, I know Alfred Spremo, an old vinyl dealer, was a big proponent of these guys. Whenever he would get one of their records, he'd write a little blurb. It was like 2 sentences in the little vinyl catalog listing, just like, amazing horror, spooky, evil Italian doom at its finest. And just like, that sounds cool. So eventually I just had to blind buy something by the band to check out. And it's a very strange listen. It's cool. I like it a lot, but it's very hard to describe if you're not familiar with their sound. And
it's an acquired taste.
It is not for everybody. That is for sure. Definitely not for everybody.
I got turned on to that band much later, and I saw them just like you did in a million different distros, and I never ever pulled the trigger. And I assumed the SS was totally Nazi related, but it was somebody else that turned me. Well, I think somebody else was listening to them ambiently. and that's what lured me in. I heard them and I was like, "What is this?" They're like, "Oh, this is Death SS." I'm like, now, back in the day, if I would have seen that cover, I would have bought it just on the cover alone. That it doesn't get much more intriguing than that. That would have totally sucked me in, and I would have bought it, on site. But back in the day, you couldn't see the album art.
There was nowhere to see the cover. No, nowhere at all. I'm trying to remember. I think probably the thing that finally made me pull the trigger. They had formed in the late 70s. Their very first interview in English, I think in English, but certainly in a U.S. publication, was in an old issue of Sentinel Steel that came out in the mid 90s. And it was actually Alfred Spremo had contacted them and done this like lengthy interview with Steve Sylvester, whose English was not very good. And Al knew Dennis Golby, who ran Sentinel Steel zine, and got him, kind of force fed him the interviews. Like, you've got to run this thing because no one's ever talked to this band in the Western Hemisphere before, essentially.
Right.
And so Dennis put it in one of the issues, and it didn't help. There were definitely some things in there that Steve was not very truthful about. One of the things, they had released a collection of singles, which he billed as like reissues of all their early singles that had only been available at shows back in the day. And that's total bullshit. There were no singles released back in the day at shows or otherwise. But it just made it, again, it's just, he was very deliberately adding to that layer of, yes, there's these old recordings out there that you should go and find and look into our band.
Yep. And
Forthon did that too. He always referred to it as the archive. Archive, like Blood on Ice. That whole thing was, we found these old tapes in the archive, and I bet you $1 million that there was no archive. There was probably maybe a demo of a couple of the songs, and he fleshed that album out in the studio without trying to recondition those tapes. He lied about everything.
The archive is a 90-minute tape in his dresser drawer.
In his dad's closet underneath some cat piss.
Gypsy Rebeth from Ritual was notorious for doing that when his stuff first got reissued. The interviews with him are so full of it's just hogwash, referencing that, they had, these hit singles in like South Africa in 1977 and that they made all these other, 7-inch releases. They don't exist. They're not out there. It's just not true.
That's so clever, though. It's so clever to do that. And I would never have the wherewithal to say something like that, because what does it do? It gets people talking. We're sitting here talking about it right now. Yeah. Years later, so how effective is it? It's incredibly effective. Yep. But I would never, ever think to say anything but the truth in an interview like that. Those guys are incredibly clever, and I got to hand it to them.
Yeah. I remember writing Tim at Shadow Kingdom after that, after those reissues came out. I'm just like, Tim, this stuff just isn't right. And he's just like, I can't admit that, but I wouldn't take that interview. I think he phrased it like, I don't think I'd take that interview too seriously if I were you.
There you go.
If you think about it, it was like the 80s, these bands using underground metal publications it's the 80s version of clickbait today.
Yep.
That's a good way to put it.
And it works. It's effective. Clickbait is there for a reason, because it works.
Exactly.
All right, Marty, you're up.
What you got, man?
I think we're going to start here with Carl's comment. Samuel Worship Him was pretty spooky when it came out.
It was.
You know what? It sure as fuck was.
Good call, Carl.
This was the first Samuel I heard, and I bought it because it was on Century Media. And thanks to the Into the Eyes of Death or whatever, that compilation, I had to buy everything that came out on Century Media. This is another one of those bands. This album in particular, I really loved Ceremony of Opposites, but this album is really special in kind of the way that Don't Break the Oath is. It's creepy as fuck. It sounds like it was recorded in a dank, forsaken dungeon somewhere underneath the Swiss Alps, just before a satanic ritual. Again, the cover artwork is a perfect depiction of what the album sounds like.
Yeah.
These guys, they started off as a Hellhammer clone in a lot of ways. They branched off with this into something a lot more well-considered, a lot more form and function to it, and it's evil. This is a very evil-sounding album. It's not really death metal. It's not really black metal. It's just a weird combination, more on the black metal side, but it's just a dark, brooding.
It's atmosphere.
It's
very
very
atmosphere.
Heavy mystery. It just sounds. I mean, even the band photos, perfect. You know,
and not to be that guy, Marty, but have you heard the demo?
I have not. Well, what's the demo? Which demo?
Into the Pentagram.
I might have that on a dub somewhere.
I believe it might have been what came out directly before that, and I think they only released it themselves on tape. It is one of the slowest things that I've ever heard in my life, but it's the same thing. It's just pure, undefinable atmosphere. I love Sammath. I always have, and I'm one of the few people, just like I feel about Rush, I love all of their eras. I love early, super slow, doomy Sammath. I love atmospheric, satanic Sammath from Blood Ritual, Ceremony of Opposites. I love the album Passage. I think that is a fantastic album.
I liked it a lot too.
Favorite albums.
I liked it a lot too, but
it's a drum machine album. I absolutely adore it.
when your drummer looks at you in the face and says, "I'm going to program drums," that's when you need to administer pain to him.
Well, they are painstakingly well programmed.
Oh, absolutely.
Drums. They're very well programmed.
Yep.
And just, I don't know, just the vibe that those guys have always conjured, have always tugged on my heartstrings. Always.
Yep.
A good pick. Very good pick.
Thanks.
Very good. Yep.
Good job, Carl.
Cool stuff.
Yeah. Way to be, Carl.
Yeah, Carl.
Oh, man.
You're up. You're up.
Oh,
You're
man.
up, Andrew.
This is one of my faves, you guys. And we talk about mystery. This band, to me, pretty much defines mystery. And I think Marty can relate because Marty uses a term a lot that I like. This band, disembowelment.
I was going to pull that.
Yeah.
Were you?
Not to. Yep.
Transcendence into the Peripheral. This came out in 93. And again, I got turned onto it on a compilation. There was one lone song that was 9 minutes long called Your Prophetic Throne of Ivory.
Yeah.
And it's a long, slow build. It eventually turns grindy, but there's so much doom amidst the grind. The vocals are death, and they're very buried in the mix. They're just another instrument. On top of these heavy doom elements are these really reverbed out single note clean guitar parts, and they just create an atmosphere that I can't even I can describe it. You know what I often relate this album to is being in the middle of the ocean and turning around deep sea, like you're scuba diving in deep sea, and turning around and realizing that a blue whale is swimming right next to you and you're right up against his eye. It's the most scary and beautiful thing simultaneously. This whole album evokes that emotion to me, and the term that you use a lot, Marty, is world building.
Yep.
This is one of the most world building albums to me. As soon as it starts, I'm in their world, and I don't come out until the album's done. Honestly, I don't know if I know a little bit of the lyrical content, but the song titles, like the one I just mentioned, Night Side of Eden, Burial at Ornans, The Spirits of the Tall Hills. It's got a black metal feel to it too, and it just paints such a beautifully dark picture. We used to, it's funny, we used to scare people with this album at parties. You know, the vibe would be going real good, everybody's feeling real good, everybody's drinking and smoking, and somebody turns around and says, "You want to hear something really scary?" And we put this on, we turn the lights on and we put this on, and it just kills the buzz.
Yeah.
It kills the vibe. It scares half the people leave. Like, that's how effective this thing was. But if you're in the right mind state, and you listen to this thing, Oh my God! You'll do yourself a favor by doing so. I know that they evolved later and turned into a project called Inverlock.
There were also after that, the other guy from that band was in Trial of the Bow.
True. Another
is
nothing but atmospheric
ambient type
endeavor. And they're all good in their own right. But to me, nothing came close to hitting the bullseye like this did. I still listen to it to this day, almost 20 years later. 30 years later.
Don't think about it.
God, I'm old.
Don't think about it.
And I don't know. My love for it has never waned. And again, there's not a whole lot of info on this band. The layout is more artsy and less informative.
Yep.
And it just adds to the atmosphere and the intrigue, and it just leaves you like, well, this is so cool because it's art. It's just art that exists for the sake of existing. So this is one of the reasons I wanted to bring up this topic.
That's a cool pick, Andrew.
Thank you.
Personal footnote, I think, if memory serves, I first heard that album in that same batch of cassette tapes where all the Armored Angel demos got sent to me. I'm pretty sure this bell was on one of the other tapes.
It was the Corporate Death compilation from Relapse Records that I heard about.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And for me, that band, they're the what could have been band if they continued. What would have come out of that?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
But I mean, what a humongous shift in dynamics on that album. You've got extreme ambience and atmosphere that goes into a reverb-soaked grind blast.
Total grind, right?
Total grind, sloppy and reverb over the whole fucking thing. Just
but it works
draped
so
it all in
beautifully.
this shroud of nebulous shroud. I don't know. It's just incredible stuff, and it's just the most unique Death Doom album ever. One of them.
I adore it.
Okay, Alan.
All right. Going to do something a little more old school here. This is another one of these bands that I have now spent 20 plus years just rummaging through the spider webs of the universe, finding more and more stuff about. They've become more of a known quantity in the past couple of decades, but back in the day, this was one that was very hard to dig stuff up by. It's Pentagram. They had the two albums come out in the 80s, but they didn't really make that big of an impact at the time. And so through most of the 90s, this band was sort of persona non grata. Nobody paid much attention to them.
Totally.
When I got their first album, though, it just I was instantly hooked. It was this great combination of very powerful and very doomy all rolled into one. And had this cool badass picture of the band on the back cover, very just plain black cover with this purple logo on the front of it.
Killer band name.
Great. Yes, it's got the name, it's got the look, it's got the sound, but it was really hard finding a lot of stuff about them. But yeah, you get you eventually you can find the two albums. They weren't impossible to find, and eventually found the one from '93 too. But then, later in the 90s, probably around 98 or early 99, I was talking with Mike Smith, the guitar player in Deceased. Great guitar player, really great guy, really knows his heavy metal history. And he mentioned, he's like, yeah, I like, those Pentagram albums too, but I really like their 70s stuff too. And I was just like, wait, who, what, huh? Excuse me?
They what?
They, huh? Did 70s stuff?
Nah.
What are you talking about? And he's just like, oh, dude. He's like, there's a million old demos, rehearsals, live recordings, and stuff. This band goes back to to the late '60s, and I'm just like, I knew there was like one single from '79 or something was the only thing I was really aware of at the time, and I was just like, oh shit, okay. There's like an entire decade worth of material I didn't even know existed for this band, and so. Time to get out the shovel and start digging. And it was just piece by piece. Eventually find another reference to a different single from sometime in the 1970s, and it would take a few years to figure out what was on it and exactly what year it came out in. Did a lot of CDR trades with somebody, I think, from Germany. that had access to a lot of old Pentagram recordings. And so I got a lot of their real early like rehearsals from December 73 and stuff from that guy trading CDRs of stuff back and forth. And again, the same kind of thing just during the CDR age. How many demos and live recordings can you cram onto 5 CDRs and send back and forth? And so, yeah, they just, they had this very deep catalog, but it was very tough digging through all of it. And, when these collections came out, on Relapse, this was volume 1, I think it came out in 2006. More of that stuff came to light. It became a little more known, but there's still a lot of stuff in their catalog that you don't have readily available. That if you really want to hear all the old Pentagram tracks, you've got to find this one, the rehearsal that was done on Bobby's birthday on December 21st, 73, because it's got these 2 songs that don't seem to show up on any other recording they ever did and stuff like that. So
how neat.
Yeah, it's you can still dig. I have an entire Excel spreadsheet just dedicated to trying to track, Pentagram demos, Pentagram live shows, what songs are on which ones and which version. The band went through lots of name changes early on, so you find demos under these other names like Virgin Death and Stone Bunny, which is a horrible fucking band name, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, if that thing had said Stone Bunny, I don't care how good it was. Nobody would ever have listened to it. So
I like
they made the right call getting rid of that moniker. But yeah, they really had that mystery in terms of it's the treasure hunt, it's the dig. Sure. Even just within the past 6 months, a European collector sent a version of a live recording from Tennessee from 82 or 83 to a collector over on the west coast of the U.S., who then sent it to me, and it turned out all 3 of us had it, but all 3 of our versions were slightly different because they'd been chopped slightly differently to fit on different length cassettes over time. Wow. And this European collector seemed to have the full show. His version was longer than mine or longer than Rob's version was. And so we were still just like, oh, crap, we've been missing part of this show. And when you listen closely, you could tell that there was a splice that had been done to the version I had and to the version Rob had. And we didn't know that we were missing several songs from it. So even 20-some years later, I'm still adding things to that list. Crazy band to dig into. Don't do what I did, kids. Just get the studio albums and stay away from the live recordings.
Though I mean, that's what we're here talking about. That's exactly what we're here talking about.
It's
that mystery. It's that intrigue. That's what keeps you going. That's what keeps you digging. When you get that little dash of information, like, well, I heard they have this, and then this rehearsal recording exists, but you're not going to be able to find it. Goddamn right, I'm going to find it. Like, that's a challenge. That's a gauntlet thrown down. See, that's great. I mean, to me, that's Metal Quests is finding that, man. It's the desire. That's great. It's fantastic.
This is just the CDs of Pentagram and Pentagram-related material. This isn't all the live shows I've got on digital formats or the stuff I've got on vinyl.
That is beautiful, my friend. That is absolutely beautiful. I love it.
I have a little problem. Help.
No way. It's a good problem. Very good problem.
All right, Marty. I'll let you take the wheel while I go put some of this stuff back on the shelf before it falls over and breaks my leg.
Right on. Well, to me, a lot of death metal stuff really was not mysterious. I mean, it was all kind of out in your face. A lot of the bigger bands got the, suitable press between here and Europe. And one band, though, that always the mystery behind it, not only in the sound, but the guys who were in it, would be Pandemonium.
Wow.
With Chaos. This album, I think this is the first one I heard. But basically, as soon as Dan Swano from Sweden acquired a recording studio, it afforded all of us countless projects, whether it's prog to death to who knows what.
You name it.
You name it. And all the influential bands that this guy has recorded, with gory sound and unisound, and his studio is just amazing. But this is basically Dan Swano and his brother and a couple other dudes They went under pseudonyms that make no sense. They make up words, reverse words, fuck up the spellings. Basically, this is heavy Swedish death metal with John Zorn-ish saxophone squawked over the top. Weird fake live crowd samples. Just weird hand claps. I mean, they basically, you could tell it was just guys fucking around, but the core of this is still really good. I guess if I had some brains about me, I could have realized it had kind of the Edge of Sanity feel to it. It was during the same era. They would just get in there and start recording shit. Then one guy would come in when it was late, his brother, and do some shit, add to the recordings. And it's just really cool stuff. And I was always, who the fuck are these guys? What?
Right.
They're taking, the Swedish death metal aesthetic and injecting these other weird influences into it. But yeah, I always enjoyed Pandemonium. I guess the veil of secrecy is lifted once you find out and know who's in the band. But this was great stuff back in the day. I think I acquired this first during a tape trade, so it's on a Maxell XL290 that I could never really give up, even after I tracked down a copy of the tape. But
no, why would you? Why would you ever give that up?
I wouldn't. Definitely.
Well, who'd want it anyway?
Right. But yeah, Edge of Sandy, or I'm sorry, Pandemonium. Same
Great
deal.
pick, man. I forgot completely about Pandemonium.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good pick.
Okay, Andrew.
Oh, it's me again. Okay. Well, again, not another band that's terribly mysterious or intriguing, but as far as like their availability is concerned, because they've been around a while and you can find their full-length albums. And what I'm going to show you here is not necessarily either of their albums, but the first time I heard this band was on this death metal sampler. I don't know if Alan or Marty have ever seen this.
I don't have that one. I don't have that one.
Oh, man, this is a good one.
I don't think
and
so.
the funny thing about it is there's bands on here that really didn't have any kind of correlation to the label whatsoever, so I really don't understand how they got on here, but I don't care because I was turned on to a bunch of great music on this. Pardon me. Vital Remains is on here. If my old eyes can read, Morta Scald.
Is that a grindcore comp label?
I don't think. I think it was like its own thing because if you see here, it's like
Def Records.
It's
Def Records.
Def Records. Yeah. But there's another great band on here, Chorus of Ruin. A really great death doom. Yep. But the band that I'm talking about is actually Eucharist. Swedish, pretty seminal Swedish death metal band. But I didn't know about them at the time. This was the first time I heard them. Was on this compilation, and the song on here is called "The View," and it's up in the top 3 best melodic death metal songs that I've ever heard to this day. It's brilliantly composed. It's brilliantly produced. Daniel Erlandson plays such inhuman drums on this song that I would listen to it over and over. Much like Master's Hammer, convinced that it was a drum machine and that a human couldn't play that well and that tightly. It's really well produced, which again led me to believe that it wasn't a drum kit but a drum machine.
Let me interrupt you 1 second. Was that stuff recorded at Studio Sunlight?
I don't think it was. It was an exclusive track for this sampler. Dissection is also on here, doing a song that ended up on the Somberlane, Into the Cold Winds of Nowhere. But on here, it's just called Cold Winds, and it's a different recording. It's not the same one that's on the Somberlane. And again, to me, the Dissection, the version on this, is better than the version on Somberlane. But anyway.
The reason I asked Andrew to continue to interrupt, I read a thing with Fenris saying that all the Studio Sunlight albums that were recorded by Skogsberg, he recorded
digital drums.
Yeah, D-drums. Yeah.
I heard that too. I mean, and because I'm a big fan of all things Sunlight sound. And
anyway,
to me, I still scratch my head to this day, like when I listen to like an Ever Flowing Stream. Left Hand Path, because to me those don't sound like D drums to me at all.
Yeah.
This song to me sounds obviously like that. But what's cool is when I was researching this for this, I found on YouTube you can find a version of this song from the perspective of Daniel's chest, basically. He's got like a GoPro on or something, and he's at a Eucharist rehearsal, and he's playing this song, and he plays it note for note, exactly perfect.
Cool.
On the drums, proving that, I mean, he's a fantastic drummer. So, you know, nowadays I realize he was capable of playing that. But back then, I didn't know who he was. This was pre-Arch Enemy, pre-anything that he did with, like, In Flames or anything like that. So I didn't really know who he was. He just seemed like an inhuman monster to me. And the song was so amazing. And a few years later, well, I knew that A Velvet Creation came out, and I got it, and I was a bit underwhelmed by it.
The production kills that album.
The production sucks.
But it's still good. It's still a good album. It's just the production's crap.
The songs are okay, but you don't know if they're okay because the production is so bad. And this is what adds to the mystery of this band, because a few years after, or a year or so after A Velvet Creation, they also appeared on this. The Wrong Again Records compilation, Volume 1.
Yep.
And this, if nobody knows about this, you need to seek it out because it's a fantastic compilation.
Oh, yeah.
But they're on this too, and they have 2 songs, Wounded and Alone and The Predictable End, which, again, these are 2 of the most amazing melodic death metal songs ever composed and ever recorded. They're beautifully captured. The production is fantastic. Which filled me with more inspiration and intrigue and love for this band. A lot of empty time passed, inactivity, and then they finally came out with Mirror Worlds. I was so excited for Mirror Worlds. The same thing. It's not as bad as A Velvet Creation.
Production's better.
But it's not really that good, though. If you listen to the production of Mirror Worlds, the guitar is okay, the vocals are okay. The drums really don't sound good, man. They sound like one mic just kind of like not even strategically placed over the drum kit. And the drums, the performances are amazing, but again, I just couldn't get past the lack of production value on it to really appreciate the songs. So part of the reason I brought this band up is, number one, they're incredible, but I never understood why their unreleased and their bonus stuff was masterpiece worthy, and their full lengths always just fell short. And I do hear stirrings, because I do follow them on social media. They're hyping it up that they're working on new material right now. So if you're listening, guys, maybe don't do a full length and maybe come out with like a 2-song or a 3-song EP.
I gotta tell you, that band was plagued by, I don't know what it was, but their demo was a demo 1. That thing sounds awesome and is awesome. I don't know if you've heard
Reading Immortality, or there may have been an earlier one.
I think what I had said demo 1 on it. I don't know, but I got it as a dub. But man, it's heavy and the songs are really good. Yes. And then Velvet Creation came out and I was like, what the fuck? It sounds like shit. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a total loser of a production. It was a total bummer.
Okay, Mr. Allen.
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. Yeah, when discussing this topic back and forth during the week, one thing Andrew mentioned was, as an example of what he was aiming for, were albums where there weren't a lot of liner notes. That you crack it open and you're hoping to learn all this cool stuff about the band, and there's just like nothing there. Just like, oh, I know which band did that to me once upon a time. It was Summoning.
Oh, you
great! Did I? I didn't think anybody would pick that one.
Very good pick.
It is a good pick.
Their music very much, has that, very cool mystical vibe to it. World building to a T. Genre building. Dungeon synth owes a ton to Summoning. Between Summoning and Mortis, I mean, that's pretty much the groundwork, I think. Yep. But so this was a case. Somebody had sent me Again, like a cassette trade with this album, their second Minas Morgul on one side, and the third album Dal Goldor on the B side. I loved them both, so I had to track something down by them. Got this cool cover art. Oh yeah, let's find out all this cool stuff and what they're singing about. And womp womp.
That's what you get.
Yep.
This is everything in the booklet. That is it. You get a few just quick lines at the moment. Don't even tell you which country to send the contact to. There's an address, but like Americans know where the heck that's at.
They don't want you to know. It's like they
somewhere. Yeah. Who are these guys? Where are they from? And again, this is mid '90s. It's the internet age, but it's early internet. You couldn't just hop on any old place and look this kind of thing up very readily right away. So yeah, I mean, obviously we know the story now with them, but yeah, a cool band, very cool, mysterious sound, and they were sort of the epitome of trying to minimize what was out there about themselves. They kept it as minimal as they could, just about.
My interesting addition to the Ludburst or the summoning thing is I had borrowed, I can't even remember, but there was a mid '90s black metal CD that I was borrowing off of somebody, and I can't remember what it was, but I was just borrowing it to copy it, and I was going to give it back, and they just gave me the CD in the case, and I just assumed that's what it was. But when I got it home, I opened it up, and it wasn't the CD that I had requested. It was the case that I had requested, but inside was their first album, Ludburst.
Yep. Oh, okay. Yep.
And was like, what is this? And I put it in, and again was like blown away by it. And again, tried, just like you, I tried to seek out a lot of info from it and found next to nothing.
Yep.
Which made it that much more intriguing. And I followed them ever since. I still follow everything they've ever done. I love those guys.
Yeah, they're one of the few bands, from that far back where when they make a new album, I will just order it blind. I don't need to hear it beforehand. I don't need to read reviews of it. I don't need to make up my mind. It's just like, you got a new summoning album? Shut up and take my money.
Exactly. If it worships Tolkien era literature, I'm in.
And I was like, they dive really deep into the Tolkien universe, which I might have been accused of doing a couple of times, but that's a different level of nerddom for a different podcast.
No worries.
It's not just, Frodo in the Ring. I mean, it's just like, this song's based on the draft of the fourth chapter of the Silmarillion that Tolkien wrote in 1933, but abandoned by the spring of 34 when he had updated, the timeline of the... Oh, shit, I'm doing it. I'm just going to self-mute right now. Marty, your turn.
I love it.
Well, I'm just going to show... I was going to go with Minas Morgul as well, but the Stronghold is probably my favorite.
It's a lot of people's favorite, I think.
This album is, I'm on the back of the horse with the ring wraith. I got my arms around him. We're riding through the fields of Gondor.
It's so epic, dude.
Yeah, so my hair, what's left of my hair is flowing in the wind. I mean, with the song "A Distant Flame Before the Sun" ripping through my mind. The song is probably one of the best black metal songs. Just absolutely acidic, scathing vocals, and the melody, and how triumphant, and the build. I mean, these guys were masters of incorporating that dungeon synth majesty in with just simple lines, but with so much layering put on top of it. It's just this album, this band, holy shit, just completely world building, absolutely world building.
Yeah. It's not technical. It's not layered in a technical sense, but they just build and expand, this incredibly big sound without having to be super, technical about it. They let your imagination fill in a lot of that space for you.
Yep.
It's like a fog machine. Like you hit the button and it just kind of expands on its own. Yep. It doesn't need a lot of layering. The world just opens up before you. And yeah, good pick, both of you guys. Great pick.
More like Flabio hair, let's be honest. Flabio. Anyway, let's go to the Norwegian side, because Norwegian black metal for me ended up being a very huge thing for probably about a decade. But thank you to Wild Rags back when Worm Gear started in the mid 90s. He would send me big packages of tapes, promos, shit that he licensed here for the US. And this is a Emperor Wrath of the Tyrant demo, the US version of it. Sounds initially to the untrained ear, it sounds like garbage, but once the songs creep in, it is
So cool.
so well written, so good. And right about that time is where the press was starting to trickle in. I'm also going to show this album here, De Mysteriis Dom Satanis. I ended up getting these early on just because of all the scuttlebutt you were hearing, the church burnings, the killings, the suicides, and black metal, Norwegian black metal on its own stood tall. Let's be honest. I mean, it on its own was great. They took the ideas of what Corathon set forth and others before them. They took it to a higher level, added their own culture, their own way of playing. 6 strings. The riffs are 6-string riff. They let those open strings ring out. It adds to that overall sound. But let's face it, the driving force behind this shit was the PR campaign, documenting all of their juvenile delinquent activities.
Oh yeah.
Good or bad, it is what it is, and it certainly pointed my little ship in the direction of Norway. I'd never heard early Mayhem. If I would have, I wouldn't have liked it, because bands like albums like Death Crush, I listened to it today. It just doesn't hold up for me. I just don't. I know it was special for its time. It's special for its time and for the country it was from, but it does not hold up compared to what they became. And this introduced me to Attila, his super unique vocals, which in a lot of ways you could tell were heavily influenced by Nivik Ogre from Skinny Puppy, which is another band that I love. And he's even got a industrial project called Plasma Pool, where basically it's like a dancier version of Skinny Puppy. But Norwegian black metal, to me, it sent me on a path where it kind of killed. When this shit hit my senses, I was starting to get real tired of death metal. I mean, I never let it go. I always loved it, and I always will love death metal, but it came at a time where I was getting a little burnout on it. So I was completely all in with this shit. Tried to find everything I could back in the day before the, like Century Media and Century Black started licensing the stuff for the U.S. market. I think I bought Satiricon's Shadow Throne European import for $25. I mean, that's just what back then. I mean, CD prices were high because they were imported. So this stuff offers a whole lot of mystery and a lot of fascination for a lot of years until the veil is lifted. And, you hear all the stories a million times from a million different characters, and it's just all kids being shitheads basically. But at the core of it all, there's great music being made that will stand the test of time and be looked back upon for sure with fondness for years, I think. And I didn't make myself bigger, but that doesn't matter. Andrew,
those are seminal recordings of great picks, and I'm glad that you picked them when you did. Number one, I don't know if you've noticed or you care, or if it's a thing, but I'm going in chronological order myself.
I'm trying to. It's starting to get a little nebulous
I felt
at this point.
That was the way to go. But our planets are aligning here the way you're going, because my next pick is also Norwegian in origin, and it's not part of the hyped up church burning mysterious side of black metal. It's way more organic and folky in its nature. It would be the very first Ulver album.
So
great pick. Yeah.
Bergtat, translated loosely into Taken into the Mountain. It's a concept album, but I didn't know that. And I learned very little morsels of information about this album years after falling in love with it musically. It was another purchase that was blind. I saw the title. I don't even know why. There's nothing really alluring about it because I didn't know what the band name meant. I didn't know what the album title meant. It just kind of called out to me. And when it arrived, I immediately fell in love with the landscape cover art, and I put it in, and that was it.
Yeah.
To this day, it's still one of the best black metal recordings that I've ever heard. It's from '95. Very well, Head Not Found is not a very high profile label. Do they even exist anymore, Marty?
I don't know.
I don't think so. But to add to the mystery here, very minimalistic CD surface. If you see here, this is all Norwegian. There's not one word of English in this. Pretty cool, typical band, grim, mid-90s band photos.
Behold this evil rock.
Yeah. But how cool is that? How cool is Skull?
Yeah.
I mean, just the name Skull, like to be named after smokeless tobacco, like that's pretty grim, But just the mixture, the entire first song, there's no grim vocal at all. It's all clean sung vocal, very traditional, and eventually they layer classical guitar over the traditional inverted tremolo picked guitar riffing. The drumming is immaculate, and the bass is intelligent, which is very
Nice.
kind of rare for
it's rare. It's nice
for
touch.
black metal. Yeah, it's definitely folk influence more than anything else, and I think that I've always been kind of drawn to the folk element. It's a lot of what I love about Aaron's music in Nechochwen and what he writes.
Yeah.
So it's always been close to my heart, and to this day I could still listen to it front to back to front to back to front to back, and just never tire of it. But so much of it was intrigue, just staring at these song titles that I could not understand whatsoever. Jurgen just chimed in. They are defunct. Had Not Found are defunct. I thought so. And it was like distributed by Voices of Wonder. But to this day, I just absolutely adore this album, and it's retained its mystery. However many years later,
They sounded like no one.
Release. No, and to this day, there are bands that emulate them. And that's cool. They deserve to be emulated, but no one will ever come close, really.
Right.
Yeah, truly mysterious album to me.
Good one.
Thanks,
Alan.
Very good one. All right. Andrew mentioned the sort of, smoke machine effect, with adding mystery to things. And that always makes me think of one album and one band in particular, Morgion with Solinari.
Ooh.
Good one.
Thank you.
Very good one.
Good album.
Excellent album. Very atmospheric. This is one of those world escapism albums for me that I can put on and close my eyes, and I don't know where I go, but it's definitely not local.
Right on.
It has its really own unique sound. It's beautiful, it's heavy, it's soft, it's atmosphere. It has, it moves very smoothly and very seamlessly through all these different sort of emotions and sounds. When you dig into a little bit, there's definitely some Dungeons and Dragons influences throughout here, which I didn't know at the time when I first got it. But excellent thing. I was just like even the layout on this one, everything, just the color pattern, the scripts, the fonts. It very much feels like you're picking up and looking and reading something ancient with this one.
And it's got a
Very
bit of an elegant look to it,
Yeah, it really does.
It oozes class.
It really, yes, that's a good way to put it, Andrew. It's a very classy looking packaging. And I got to see the band once they played at Milwaukee Metal Fest, and
Jealous.
The performance absolutely was, lived up to the album. This was another one that I bought at that same Milwaukee Metal Fest with Armored Angel, because I really wanted a copy to replace the cassette copy that somebody had made for me. And they were on the relapse stage, which meant, they had like 20 minutes to, churn out 2 or 3 songs before getting replaced with some other band. But they just not only completely nailed it sonically, they did the smoke machine effect, but instead of turning the lights way down, they actually had the stage lights very bright. And so the effect was, you could see the outlines in the smoke, but it was, very dark. And it perfectly emulated being outside on a very foggy morning when the sun has come up, but it hasn't had time to burn away any of the mist yet. Right. And you're just completely still in the fog, but it's bright. It's not dark. It's not spooky in any way. It's just got this, with 20 minutes and a smoke machine on this shitty little stage, they perfectly captured this atmosphere that was so reminiscent of the music being played. I stood there and didn't move for the 20 minutes. It was like, this is one of the coolest things I have ever seen or will probably ever see done on a stage. It just was perfect for them. So yeah, this is one of those cool albums that's just steeped in layers of mystery and wonder.
Great pick, man. Great pick.
Thank you. All right, Marty.
All right, let's get a little weird. This band has always intrigued me. From the band photos of Jürgen Barsch, is that his name? No, I can't remember his fucking name. Barsch, shooting up, all sorts of weird, awful imagery. But Bethlehem's Dictius T. Nakare, I don't know.
Yeah,
exactly.
Dude. Yeah.
Is this my favorite Bethlehem album?
Mine too. I totally forgot about Bethlehem.
The Suicide, I think, is my favorite, but this one is really, really, really great. The vocals of Land for Men are unhinged, desperate, crazy sounding.
Wow.
The music ranges from just straight up kind of depressive black metal to moments of this weird ambience, a clean guitar line with heavy reverb draped over it. It just gives this feeling of this oppressive feeling while you're listening to it, but it's super atmospheric, super mysterious. And it's all in German, I'm assuming, because they're German.
Yes.
And there's some band photos and whatnot. But this is the first album by this band I heard, and it is probably very influential. I think this band in a lot of ways is the blueprint for what DSBM wants to be, especially the album Suicide. That album is just complete depressive misery put to CD. I love that album a lot. It's just so interesting. That's just it. They cling to a black metal aesthetic, but they put so many different influences and so many weird twists and what sounds like on the other album on Suicide, like someone writing with a marker on a blackboard. I mean, it's like these weird sound treatments that creep in. It just puts you in this off-kilter headspace. And these guys were fucking great. I think they're still around. They've gone through, a bunch of lineup changes over the years, but still maintained to put out some decent albums. I know the dude from Shining was in the band for a while trying to redo older songs, and it's not as good. I'm not a big fan of that guy, but this album and the one that came after it, Suicide, there's another album that came before this called Dark Metal, which is also really good. But this here, They really hit their stride and really did something unique and cool and really super strange, if not mysterious.
Absolutely agree. Man, great pick. You guys are picking great ones, man. This is really cool. I'm digging it.
Cool. All right. It is Andrew.
Okay. Well, we're keeping it mid-90s black metal. This might, if I had to choose one desert island black metal album, this would hands down be it. I wouldn't even need to think about it. Abador.
Yeah.
From the Twilight Kingdom.
That's Selenius from Summoning sings on that, right?
This one I believe is Selenius. Yes. Austrian. Black
good
metal.
shit.
Very good. Yep.
Basically, I think a trio on this that to this day has never played a live show. Again, adding to the intrigue of the band.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember listening to this over and over, wondering if there was even a bass guitar in the recording. I found out later that there is, but it was just so buried in the mix.
Newsteaded.
Pretty much non-existent. But it didn't need it because this band relies purely on counterpointed melodic guitar harmonies over brilliant black metal blast beats and the occasional classical guitar overlaid over top of that, which I felt filled a lot of the bass void a lot of the time, and really scathing, not quite as anguish influenced as Land for Men. I really forgot about how anguished that guy was. That guy was pure anguish. But pretty scathing black metal vocals on this one. And I love their entire catalog. I followed them from... I found them on this, which was 95. I went back into the back catalog, bought everything, and then I followed them ever since, and I follow them to this day. They've gone through a lot of changes, but still have retained their identity. But this one was so just absolutely perfect, and just like you said, the lyrics are in English, which was pretty surprising. I think they have one song on here that's in Austrian, but these are the band photos, and you can be like, oh, that's not close enough. I can't see that. No, it's not going to help.
Doesn't help.
It doesn't matter how close I get. You're not going to really see anything. And they don't want you to. Like, they want to be shrouded in mystery. This is like intentional intrigue, and which is exactly what I'm talking about as far as like the subject matter for this episode. So when I picked this was really what I had in mind, was a band like this, Abigor.
Yeah, that is my favorite in their catalog.
I think mine too.
It's
absolutely beautiful.
It's
they would hate for me to call it beautiful, but it is beautiful to me.
It's their finest work in my opinion. Great choice.
As they went on, their shit got more and more chaotic. I mean, the riffs are just kind of crazy and hard to hold on to.
The new stuff is criminally insane, pretty much. Yeah. But I could still find the beauty in it. And again, they're probably punching me in the face for saying that.
No, it's all good.
To me, I find beauty in it. I see beauty in it.
They'll hire a guy in Sweden to come set fire to your back door.
Right.
All right, Alan.
Okay. This is one that a band early on that had sort of a mysterious thing going on. And it's Opeth's Orchid. I just have a reissue collection with them, so just zooming in here. Some things that were goofy about this album. When Opeth put this out, unlike most bands, they hadn't spent a ton of time in the underground, on the tape trading circuits with all these demos and stuff. They hadn't appeared on tons of compilations, with labels trying them out, and giving them a chance. They just kind of appeared and put out this album that was very good, but it was pretty unique. They had these much longer songs. They had more 70s influences early on. The band photo on the back of it, just has all you see is the silhouettes of the members, like standing on a hillside. There was very little information about them. You couldn't see what they looked like. It was an unusual looking album for something that was being put in the death metal realm. That you just had their logo and you had these pretty flowers and that's all that was on the cover. But it was a very good album. People caught on right away that this was a very talented band that was writing some very interesting music. And they had just kind of showed up and all of a sudden had a record, and it was a great record. And where did this band come from? So there was people were very excited, but also kind of confused when they first showed up. Just in terms of how unusual this was in terms of album art and stuff. I ended up getting this about the time it came out, and I got it technically, the girl I was dating at the time, her dad wanted to get me a birthday present. And so he told her, just like, oh, just buy him a record, that he'll like. And it put her in a weird spot because she's just like, anything he likes, you're not going to like the look of. You know, he was one of those folks that, heavy metal music is bad and evil, blah, blah. We never got into it over that, but she's just like, yeah, I can't exactly go buy him a Morbid Angel album. You're not going to approve of that. But, brilliantly, she found the solution. She's like, we've heard about this new band, Opeth, and I can show this. Yeah, Dad, I bought him this album. And he's just like, oh, that looks really nice. Sure.
That's safe. Totally safe.
He never had a clue that he was getting, this, crazy, new wave death metal, hotness out of Europe.
Of course.
As far as he knew, it was some kind of Yanni album or something.
That's great.
But yeah, so just because, with the band picture and the just, sort of sudden appearance on the scene, Opeth always, early on had that, sort of veil of mystery hanging around him for me.
One of my favorites.
It's probably my favorite album in their catalog. I'll admit, now I'm not a huge Opeth fan.
The third one was my favorite. My Arms Your Hearse was my favorite. Too. But and I didn't catch on to them quite as early as you did. Morning Rise is what I bought first, and that was one that I did buy because of the album art. I saw the album art and was like, this has to be good. And
it's a cool cover. Yep.
Fell in love with it and then backtracked into Orchid and was like, oh my God, this is incredible too.
Yep.
Not a real big fan of the later stuff, but those first 3 albums are gold to me. Absolutely.
All right, Marty. You're up, Marty. I'm going to run and get a drink while you take it away.
All right. Next up. I think metal nowadays has got a serious addiction and problem with wearing masks or having horns or bones. It's become a thing. And before all that really took off, we got Arcanum with Fran Martyr.
Ooh.
This was Sammath. He was the drummer in Grotesque for a while.
Yep.
At the time, I didn't know that, but here's a guy. He's a sole member of this band at this time, and I think he still is. But he wore that mask, and there was something mystical about this. This album was recorded in the Abyss Studios by Peter. I think it was done by Peter, but it was done by Peter. Just really excellent Swedish black metal that did not sound like Marduk or all the other. I mean, the Swedish sound had a definite feel and style about it. This really touched on it, but it just did not sound like all the other Swedish bands to me. And the mystery of this guy wandering around the woods with a mask and kind of cheesy, but it somehow all worked for me. And I really, really enjoyed the first 3 albums by this project for sure. Just definitely mystical, really well done, aggressive black metal. Back before masks and everything were kind of a trend, or hiding your identity and all that stuff. But so much so I interviewed him back in the day for Worm Gear, and turned out and it was really cool to get his full blown he was just sticking to his shtick in the interview. But
did he lie a lot?
I don't know if he's lying. He stayed in his fantasy realm more or less. It wasn't.
That's cool though.
Yeah, it was cool.
He kept the image up.
Absolutely, he maintained the image. I don't know now. I don't think now there's social media. You can see his wife in pictures, and it just kind of kills it. But with all time, it changes everything, and everybody gets so accustomed to this stuff. But during the height of the mid 90s black metal stuff, this Arcanum shit really sat well with me. I listened to the first 3 albums quite a bit. Definitely a cool, mysterious band with a unique sound.
I totally agree. Great pick.
Andrew.
Well, the Swedish continues. We're vibing off each other, and we didn't even know it. So I picked a Swedish band that I took a gamble on. I think it was one of those distro deals. They were having a sale, like if you buy so many, you get something at a discount, or you get something for free. And I remember, picking the titles that I knew that I wanted. And my friend at the time, I was like, man, I don't know what else to get. I got everything that I want on the list. And my friend was like, "Get that. That looks rad." And I think he got it because he told me to get it because the band name had 666 in the title. It was Nestrond, which they're not known as Nestrond, and they're also known as Nestrond 666. The album is Todeslout.
Never heard that band.
Oh, never. Well, it's really good, on par, Swedish black metal, mid 90s, 96, I believe. And you know, I get it, and I open up the cover, and you know, you got your skull. This is cool. There's some like Indian Sanskrit written over top of it, which I don't really understand since it's a Swedish band. And then I look on the, if you could see it without blurring it, it's hard to see, but up here, there's like Egyptian hieroglyphs. And I'm thinking, okay, this is a Swedish band, and they've got Sanskrit and hieroglyphs on their layout. What does that mean? They've got song titles like "A Hearse Clad in Skull and Bones," and I put it in, and it's great. What I would call mid-paced black metal. But what was really intriguing about it was when I got to the band photo section. First, I get this guy, who, you know, your typical Swedish black metal guy in corpse paint and a leather jacket, Arganis, but doesn't say what Arganis plays. So I begin scratching my head.
He plays with evil.
Then I look at what I feel to be the rest of the band members, and I see this, which appears to be a mask or a statue.
Looks like a Death in June album cover.
Taken from
Douglas
like a
P.
chin
shot.
up perspective, but he's got a name. His name is Carl. Carl with a K. Carl N-E. Carl Northeast, maybe? I'm
having a bad flash on Aqua Teen Hunger Force right now.
But so I'm thinking, and then again, there's no credits, so I don't know what Carl performs on the album. And then in between the two is a drawing of a skull with some bones, but it's got, man, I'm terrible at finding the camera here, but it's got a name too. Agni Hotri. So apparently this drawing performs on the album as well. But what does he perform?
Maybe that's the drum machine. They named the drum machine.
What do these guys perform? But that's the thing. Again, it's a full band. Like, there's guitars, there's bass, there's organic drums, there's vocals, but there's no inclination as to what the statue / mask or drawing perform on this album. And, you know, we made a joke about it, and when I was in a drum machine band, we said that this guy's name was Carl Nee, N-E, Nee. And we made our drum machine a mascot, and he was just a mask. He was like an old, crappy 70s Halloween mask, and we called him Head. And his last name was Nee. We called him Head Nee. In you know, homage to Carl Nee here. But to this day, I have no idea what this means or what they're doing on the album or whether in the credits. So very mysterious and alluring Swedish black metal. Nestrond.
Right on. Never even heard of him.
Neat. Yeah, that's completely new to me.
Yeah.
Alan.
All right. Somebody made a passing reference to one of the members of this band in the chat earlier, and I had it on the stack, so I think it's time to do it. Definitely a weird, kind of mysterious sound with this band. Root.
Yep.
You have had very different albums and very different styles over the year. They've got a long legacy that goes a ways back. their music always did a good job of having this sort of, arcane, ceremonious sound to it, like they're performing some kind of, ritual, that's going on with the beats and the, very flamboyant, over the top vocals with, again, lots of different, styles. You can be singing deeply one moment and cackling the next minute and shrieking, a couple of minutes after that. So, yeah, it always added up to just a very weird sound. I grabbed the book. I thought this was the album that things really gelled for them and they kind of clicked a little better. I like some of the stuff before this one, but at times it was rougher around the edges and had a little trouble finding its footing. But I thought right around this point, that they really found their groove in terms of songwriting and really, getting the mysterious vibe, but also writing very tight, very good songs at the same time on a consistent basis throughout the whole album. So yeah, just in those bands and albums that always had that, hint of mystery about them. Part of it being the crazy vocals and the accents and the inflections and such. But yeah, just the weird rhythms and stuff they would use in constructing the songs too added to that for me.
I remember being blown away the first time I heard Roots, and it's like one of those. You see a band name and you kind of build a preconceived notion in your head of what you think the band may sound like.
Yep.
Sometimes you build a preconceived notion of even what they may look like.
Yep.
At least I do that until I know more about the band. But I remember having this preconceived notion of what I thought Root would be, and then when I heard them, that was all completely and utterly shattered. Yeah. Like, there's no way you did a brilliant job of doing it, but there's no way that I could really describe Root to anyone without just being like, just listen to it. You just have to listen to it.
That is the best advice for a band like that. And if you don't like one album, you might love the next album because some of them sound very different.
They reinvented themselves each album.
Yep.
Sure.
I think I've got a couple promos of Root albums, but I do remember the book. That album reminded me a bit of Moonspell at times. Oddly enough,
I can hear that. I can definitely hear that.
It's got some of that, that kind of almost gothy kind of ceremony.
Were they Slovakian? Where were they from?
Czech. Yep, they were Czech.
Okay, that's what I thought.
All right, I guess I'm up next. And
sure.
All you, Marty.
Let's go back to Sweden for a minute. This isn't necessarily a mystical, mysterious album, other than the fact that it has that kind of feel to me in the riffs and the overall presentation, but it's Ophthalmia's Via Dolorosa. I absolutely love this album. This album is a riff after riff masterpiece. Yeah. It's got Legion from Marduk singing on it. It's got Emil Nordveit, John Nordveit's brother, on bass, and I think that's Benny Larson from Edge of Sanity right there on drums. But this, to me, it's kind of a doomy black metal feel in the riff. The way the riffs are, it reminds me very heavily of old releases of Verathron and Rotting Christ. Just that really melodic, interesting. Its vocals or its guitar writing style was very much influenced by that. The songs are so fucking catchy and so heavy.
Every riff's a hook.
Every riff is a fucking hook. And this album is really long, and they end it with a Death Crush cover, which is completely unnecessary. But this is a great record. And if you guys have never heard Ophthalmia, anybody in the chat, definitely check them out. It might be a grower because there's so much going on. I mean, there's so many riffs. The songs are long, but the power and the hooks, it's just, and then all through it all, there's an atmosphere to it that it doesn't feel like Sweden. Like I said, there's a definite Greek thing going on here musically, but this is a great album. Not necessarily super mysterious, other than the way it makes me feel. It kind of puts me in that medieval space.
Because it's kind of a super group, it's kind of mysterious, and I'm sure they never played live or anything. No. And there's not a lot of information on them, but and maybe it just hit me at the right time. Yeah. But it was not a grower; it was a shower to me. Yep. It immediately grabbed me by the nuts, and I love that album. Dominion, I think, is another great offering from them. That's just another band that I just felt like all the band members that make up that band, I like all their individual projects, but nothing really compares to that. I think Ophthalmia were really the definition of like a diamond in the rough, and I just don't know how they didn't get more popular.
Yeah, that's a good choice, Marty. I hadn't thought of that band in a long time, and they were one that early on had were another band that really played up the mystery around the member and stuff, and that even though it was this combination of guys, that kind of like summoning, that there wasn't. They didn't want a lot of information out there about this project and stuff. It came to light a little bit later, but yeah, the early ones were very much just like, we got together, we made an album, fuck off. In the end, you didn't, that's all you got from them.
Yeah.
And those guys are so talented, they don't really think too much about it. They're just like, okay, we blew our load on this one, moving on to the next project, because they're restless, incredibly talented minds just work that way.
Yeah, these guys did 3 albums.
Right. But
They're all
again,
good.
I think that they had so much more in them other than those 3 albums too. I think if they were given, and maybe they didn't want it, but
I know it kind of disappeared from the scene at some point.
Yep. And so maybe they didn't want the notoriety, but they should have been more recognized than what they were. I always felt that way about those guys.
Okay.
Am I up?
You're up.
Well, that leads me to, again, we're vibing again, because I've got a little bit of a mini super group that I bought just completely based on the band name. December Moon. Any of y'all remember December Moon?
I've not thought of that one in a long time either.
This is a recording from '96.
I don't think I've heard that.
This is all they ever did. But it's just 2 guys. It's Robin, the original bass player from Cradle of Filth, doing all the songwriting and vocals. I believe vocals, bass, and guitar. And it's the drummer, if you can believe it, from Extreme Noise Terror.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, I wasn't even really into Extreme Noise Terror back then. I totally appreciate them much more now. But I don't know if it's just ideas that Robin brought to the Cradle of Filth table, and they were like, thanks, but nah, and just threw them aside. But it's mid-paced melodic black metal, and I don't know, it's just super charming, and I just remember thinking, when I heard it, I was like, oh, okay, these guys are onto something, and this is just going to be the start of something grand. Like, this is going to blow up, people are going to listen to it, it's going to turn into album after album after album, they're going to build a full-fledged band out of it, it's going to turn into what I honestly felt to be like Dimmu Borgir status, like what those guys turned into. I expected this to kind of turn into that, because pound for pound, if you were to put this up against the first couple Dimmu Borgir albums, I think this is way stronger and kind of in the same vein. But you saw what happened with Dimmu Borgir. They got huge. So maybe, again, hearkening back to it's all about who you know and right place, right time scenario. Maybe just the planets never aligned for these guys, but I don't know. I just felt that this was going to blow up, and it never did. So to me, again, it's not really intriguing or mysterious. The only intrigue is like, why didn't these guys get more, appreciation and exposure than what they did? So if you've never checked that out, December Moon, the name of the album is Source of Origin.
Okay. Alan.
All right. Well, I don't think I've named a Norwegian one here, so probably time to correct that. This band, always had a mysterious vibe, but they weren't really going for overtly satanic or raw or anything. they kind of had their own little niche, which I liked a lot. This was Limbonic art, Moon in the Scorpio.
That's my favorite album by them. It's great.
Very, I would agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And just even the title itself, I thought, it lent itself more to the mysterious than the satanic or anti-Christian or unholy or any of that stuff. Especially on this album, they did a really nice job of capturing that sort of, again, the midnight ritual on the mountaintop atmosphere. And, maybe they're up to no good. Maybe they're just asking for a blessing from some kind of dark one for something relatively minor. You don't know, but it's got creepy elements, but it's got, it's got good hooks within it. It's not, melodic per se, but it's music. It's very easy to remember compared to a lot of, the harsher black metal stuff. This was a band, it was a little more, it wasn't high-minded in the sense of, the really progressive Norwegian stuff, that would come, but these guys were definitely going for something that wasn't just running around in the woods, with a big sword or, hatchet or, battle weapon of some type. It was a little more high-minded than that. And they really did a good job on this album in particular of capturing that vibe. The next album was also pretty good, but yeah, over time they kind of drifted away and lost that element to their sound, which was a real shame. And they never quite nailed it like they did on this first album. Just getting that this is when you can just listen, especially the intro and through the first song. It really, you're standing right there next to this person, and some weird shit's about to go down once the other members of the coven show up, but you don't know exactly what you're in store for, and it's a really cool atmosphere.
Good symphonic black metal.
Very good.
They didn't try to hide the fact they had a drum machine, and they did a good job with it.
Yep. And again, just the minimalist, kind of aesthetic, but set again with more the cosmic background, not just the black and white, grim, true kind of image. It's there, but it's done a little different. They've got their own twist on it.
And a lot of bands kind of followed that path after they tried it.
Yeah. It became bigger after, but yeah, this was. I don't know if they were the first band to try that, but it definitely was the first one that caught my attention.
For sure.
All right,
Marty, what you got for number 9?
Well, I've got 3 more, and they're all Finnish because let's face it, the Finns have always had a very strange personality when it comes to anything from death metal to black metal, which is what we're going to talk about here. Carl in the chat actually mentioned this early on, and I agree with him. Impaled Nazarenes, Toll, Corn, Nors, no idea.
Yep.
This is
it's fun to say, isn't it?
You want to talk about super minimal? This is basically just with just some names, and I got this because of the label it was on, and it was a what the fuck moment when it starts up, because every single song has got some sort of an interlude, whether it's an orgy going on. Someone going during an orgy and just all these weird animal sounds and weird fucked up shit. But this was hitting about the same time Norwegian black metal was picking up.
Mm-hmm.
Sounded nothing like Norwegian black metal. Nothing. No. Not even a little bit. These guys had definite punk foundation to them, but Mika Lutinen's vocals were just completely insane, harsh, threatening sounding. And with all these weird, perverse samples sprinkled in between the songs, it gave this thing a very malevolent, demented feel, completely unique for the area that they were located. And this album here intrigued the shit out of me. And the first 4 albums I think are all great. Completely, they got a little more Motorhead as they went along, but this first 3 albums are all great, all unique. They maintain a strand of sameness, but there's experimentation in there, whether it's martial industrial thrown in or just strange shit. And this is just a great, at the time, very mysterious band for me. I knew there was a feud between them and the Norwegian scene, which made it even more interesting to want to, track down their stuff and see what it was all about.
Yeah.
Great choice.
It's an interesting one. I remember when I first got that album, I think somebody just sent it to me as a freebie in a trade or something. And I did not know what the hell to make of that album. It was, I played it a few times and I just kind of
Thank you.
deliberately just like, I'm just going to walk away from this one and I'll revisit it sometime down the road because I just don't know what to do with this album at the time. This would have been around 96 or 97, a few years after it came out. But it's just like, I don't know what I'm listening to, and I can't process this album right now.
It was probably around the same time that I heard it for the first time too, and I remember thinking that like Mika is kind of like the G.G. Allen of black metal, kind of.
I like that.
And I remember being like the first time I heard that, you call it an orgy. To me, what I interpreted it as, it was a demon raping a child, is what I gathered from that sample. I was like, that sounds like a demon raping a child. And
Okay.
I was legitimately disturbed by that,
Yeah.
that audio. And I was like, yeah, I don't ever want to hear that again. Like, I'm just going to skip over that. I don't ever want to hear that again. It was too visceral. It was a little too real to me. They did a very good job at being graphic there. And I know they were trying to push the envelope for the sake of it. And you're right, though, that those guys were totally in a league of their own as far as like what they may have tried to sound like. The punk influence was definitely there from the entire gamut of their career.
Yeah.
The punk element was always there. And that's, I don't know, even Mika kind of had like a GG like look to his face. Like,
Yeah.
he kind of had the facial features of GG to me. And he was always just like intentionally pushing the envelope for the sake of it,
Yep.
So I always got that vibe from them.
I saw them one year at Milwaukee Metal Fest, and it was at the old Eagles Ballroom venue, which was like kind of a tall venue, multiple floors, like stages on every floor. There was like a walkway. Each floor there was like a platform, then stairs, and a platform, then stairs. He was wandering around with a couple women, completely trashed.
Of course.
And he was on like the second floor, the platform and the stairs, crumpled up, like passed out drunk.
Yeah.
People were like stepping over him to go down the stairs. It seems like it was a half hour, 40 minutes later, he was on stage with Impaled Nazarene, just crushing.
Just going ape.
And he didn't act like he was inebriated or drunk. I'm like, what the fuck? These Finns are fucking diehards, man.
You could just turn it on and off at will.
Yeah, crazy.
Well, if I'm up next, I've
You
only
are.
got one left. Because I think I'm at 10.
Yeah, I
But,
picked a couple extras. Sorry.
But again, we're striking the same chord at the same time, man, because my last one is also Finnish in nature. Very weird album. And now that I was thinking about it after I picked it, and I was like, I don't even really remember. Normally, you acquire an album, you can remember how you acquired it,
Yep.
who turned you on to it, or taking a chance on it, or somebody telling you it was awesome. I don't remember how I acquired this album. I really don't. And I've hung on to it since it came out. It's an album from '99. The band is And Oceans. The Symmetry of I, The Circle of O is the name of the album. And just the title itself kind of inspires intrigue.
Absolutely.
It's not your typical cover art for a black metal album. If you were to classify it, you would call it symphonic black metal. Musically, it really doesn't go over the top as far as the music itself goes, but it's got song titles like Acid Sex and Marble Teeth. My favorite song title on here is I Wish I Was Pregnant.
Those Finns are so fucked up.
So, that's part of the intrigue. You start reading the song titles and you're like, what? And then, pretty artsy, not a whole lot. I mean, beautiful layout, 2 CDs, but not a whole lot of info there. But there is a liner in here, and here to me where it got really mysterious and really intriguing. I start looking at the band photos, and you've got your typical long-haired, straight-haired, svelte, Finnish gentlemen in long-sleeve shirts. They've got their names like Onzar and Dreef. Gaunt is a band member. But then we get to the final page of the layout, and I noticed that my old eyes can see this. That the singer's name is like K, the number K, the number 274S, like he's like a robot from Return of the Jedi or something, like IG-88. And here's his photo, accompanied by this guy, who is also credited as a band member, as a vocalist. His name is You. You.
Yeah.
Y-O-U.
Wait, you? No, you.
You.
You?
Right. So, you're like, what's going on with this guy? What vocal parts does he do? I mean, can you get more specific here? I want to know, So I've always been intrigued. I mean, he's got this singer who I found out later, his name is Kenny. Very mysterious. Mm-hmm. Kenny. Kenny's got a spiked, like, dog collar thing here. But does it really have the same effect when you're holding a clown ventriloquist dummy that has sunglasses and a straw hat?
Yeah, there are several things wrong with that photograph.
I know, and I just try and think of like, okay, guys, I got the idea for the band photo. Here's what we're going to do.
Picture this.
Right. How does this not get shot down by Onzar and Dreef and Gaunt? Like, grow a set, you guys. Like, why did this not get shot down?
Look, I paid money for this puppet. He's going to be in the band.
Went to film.
The band members, the photographer, the editor, the album
so
label owner.
Where this should have gotten caught and captured and remedied, fixed, and it didn't. It made it all the way to the end.
There are several tiers of failure here.
Right. There are a lot of people to blame here. And it just, I don't know, man. It always had me scratching my head. This one did. And I don't know. I just picture myself, if I was another band member of this band, if I was Demond, I would just be like, okay, guys, well, you do what you want. That's my cue. I'm out.
You do you.
No hard feelings.
You do you.
Right. You do you. No ventriloquist clown in sunglasses and a straw hat.
If ever there was a case for artistic differences, this is the time.
Exactly. This is where I draw the line. Can we at least get a vote on this, you guys? Seems like there was no diplomacy involved in this whatsoever. And,
you got to wonder, maybe you can meet him halfway and replace the clown with some kind of oversized sock monkey. Does that make it work?
Or at least, put corpse paint on the clown. Try and make the clown look grim. At least try and make him look grim. There's a lot of things you could have done to grim up this clown, and there was no attempt made. So,
my clown puppet is more grim than yours.
So to me, I don't know. It's probably why I've kept it to this day, because musically, it doesn't really match what's going on visually.
Could it?
So it's been a center of intrigue from day one, and that's probably why I've always held on to it. And Oceans, yeah.
Right on, Alan.
Where do you
Can you follow up a clown named you, Alan? What do you got?
I The closest thing I can get is an acid bath album cover, but yeah, that clown's scary for other reasons. But yeah, I will be thinking about that one for a while. But let me refocus here.
That's why it was my last one.
Bring it in.
Back in the zone.
Yeah.
Bring it back in. Bring in the love.
Okay. All right.
Push out the jive. Okay, we're good. All right. Yeah, we've been kind of doing a lot of globe trotting. So for number 10 here, I'm going to bring it back around to an American band. This is a band that I think is going way overlooked, and probably because one of the members is better known for another project they are involved in. But this album, I think I probably just heard it on a recommendation. Somebody's like, you should check this out. And I checked it out and fell in love with it. And it took me a while to find out much about the band because they didn't have a whole lot put out, at least not to date. It is Ciders.
Seder.
Yeah, for Winter Fire. Really cool project. It's of course one of Austin Lund's non-panopticon projects, but they go for a really cool cosmic sound on this one. It's doomy, but also very, very vast sounding. It's very much influenced by Norse mythology and all that, but not in a stereotypical Vikings, hail, sword, plunder, kill. It's been done 1,000 fucking times kind of vibe. It's very much more on sort of the cosmic side of it. Even the band name kind of relates to like a form of Norse magic that is apparently pretty arcane, even in Norse history and such. So, and I just really love the vibes they create on this album. The second one is very as well, but if I've got to pick one, I'll pick this one. Yeah, and again, in terms of information, you get lyrics, but it's just one big landscape on this side and one big landscape on this side.
Nice.
So yeah, it's I didn't even realize for a while that it was. I didn't make the connection with Austin or Panopticon. I wasn't. It was a lot more recent when I was just like, oh yeah, okay, that makes some more sense now. But yeah, if you have not checked out that band, definitely a very cool one. They do an excellent job generating that kind of atmosphere with really nice textures throughout it. Really cool vibe, and definitely one that captures that mysterious quality in their music for me quite a bit. Now again, this maybe I'm cheating a little bit. This is definitely an internet era one. It's not as hard to find stuff out about, but newer bands can still do that. They can still really get that vibe despite the information being closer to our fingertips sometimes.
Yep.
So that's going to be my number 10.
Good choice. I got two more. Sorry, I cheated, but
You're fine.
we're still in Finland, and we're going to be here till the end. And this next band I love. They're so weird. They're so Finnish. And the first time I heard this album, I was blown away. And
Is there a clown involved, Marty?
no
the clown
clowns,
puppet?
no clowns.
Then they're not that weird.
That's right.
This is Unholy, the Second Ring of Power.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This is extremely amazing black doom, I guess is the only way you could really classify it. By the time this shit came out, I think their Trip to Depressive Autumn demo was another one that Wild Rag sent me in that bag of tapes for promo. Blew me away, and these guys sound like nobody else. I like all of their albums. All of their output has been, as they went on, I guess they got a bit more gothic. They introduced a lady singer on here. She's on here too, but only like one song. But later on, she became more prominent in the mix. And it still works so good. Their shit is just crawling, kind of barren doom with black metal foundation. Very much strange. They put these weird transitions, and just the overall way they sound is a little disturbing. Again, the mystical quality to them. No one sounds like them. Definitely proving that the water in Finland is definitely filled with strange old magics for sure, because it's
Agreed.
It's
Absolutely.
Clown P.
Yep.
Yeah, but no, that's a cool pick, Marty. You mentioned that one to me sometime a while back, and I've played it a couple of times, and yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
You got more, Andrew, or are you out of
No,
bullets?
that's it. That was my number 10. Where
Alan,
do
you got
go
another
from
one?
there?
I've got two very quick honorable mentions. Well, three. I'll just blast through them. They were close to the list. One thing Andrew mentioned is like, bands, from other countries and stuff. And we've visited a lot of them. One place we didn't visit was Mexico. And I always thought the Chasm had a very cool,
Love the Chasm.
very underground, mysterious sound.
Daniel's one of the nicest dudes you'll ever meet, man. He's such a cool dude. So
I've
What
always
an unrelenting, like super brutal band, though.
yeah,
they can be, but yes, they have this they have that kind of cavernous and very heavy, pure death metal sound. To me, they always have a much sort of darker, more mysterious aura about them for some reason. That and maybe it's just the song titles and stuff. They're not singing entrails ripped from a person and
Right.
bloodbath serenade. That they really go for all this very sort of occult looking mystical imagery and song
lyrics
titles.
are very well done too. Very good stuff.
Yes.
Yep. My only complaint I've ever had with the band is that the song titles can run together very bad. It can be hard to remember which song is which looking at the titles because they're all like an inner eye looking upon the transcendence of stars, and the next one is stars overshining a transcendent eye at midnight. But yeah, I thought they deserved to mention. Necros Christos, wanted to give a quick shout out to. I thought they did a very nice job of capturing that sort of weird, again, ceremonial occulty vibe with their album.
Very unique.
It's a great
Very
album.
unique, especially for their time. I thought they really stood out, in the death metal scene there in the earlier 2000s, doing those little. Again, the whole album was structured around symmetries and rituals. The way they had the little subtitles and stuff on the instrumental parts was cool. And the last one to shout out, this album has such a cool atmosphere to it. I've never really heard anything else like it, but that second Celestial album,
Yep.
It's very cool. Longer songs, and just the way the songs they build very slowly, and then they come back down very slowly and build very slowly, and it's really enchanting. I mean, I think very clever the way they did it. It's really, again, it's kind of a world building sound to it. You really can get lost in the soundscape that they develop, and you can't understand a thing Tanner's shrieking about or anything, but you don't need to. You can just let your imagination fill it all in for you, and it just has a very cool vibe. I really was impressed at how they created this very unique sound, and it has that very enchanting, mysterious element to it. So those are my three.
I think you described it very well, and I think the cover art complements it so well because to me, I totally get that, and it's like water wearing down a rock.
Yeah,
over centuries, basically.
Really taking its time to do it.
Yeah, subtle build, but the end result is so impactful at the end of it all.
Yep.
Yeah. Very good pick.
Tanner's a genius. Super nice dude.
Absolutely.
Super talent.
Yeah.
And also the Chasm, probably one of the best live bands I've ever seen.
Oh, cool.
Super great band. Anyway, my last one is Finnish. And since they loaned out their clown and never got it back to And Oceans, they had to do their own thing. They had to figure something out minus the clown. I mean, how does one pick up the pieces and move on? But this
Where do
band
you go
did.
from there?
When you moves on, you just aren't the same.
You aren't
That's
the same.
right.
And this album, to me, is the be-all, end-all Funeral Doom album. This album completely, perfectly encapsulates everything Funeral Doom ever is, ever was. Perfect. And they did it. No one knew who was in the band. I'm talking about Skepticism, Storm Crowfleet.
Nice.
This album is mind blowing. They call it green metal. I think they wanted to call it. I don't remember exactly what the hype thing was with the. This is
Really?
put out by Redstream, but their percussion is kettle drums.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It sounds like you are in a funeral procession.
Yeah.
Or on a mighty vessel sailing across the sea into a storm. You know, the drum beats like telling people to row. I mean, there's that feel in this too, but this is suffocating, downtrodden, utterly. It's like, I don't know. You can feel the life draining out of your body when you listen to this album, and it never gets boring. It's just so interesting. They took the Funeral Doom formula and with the kettle drums alone, that it perfectly encapsulates what Funeral Doom should be. You know, you felt like you're in a funeral procession listening to this stuff. Yeah, this is absolutely great. You know, probably one of the more mysterious albums in the stack that I pulled, to be honest with you. It's just, it takes you to a bad place.
Even the album art.
Yeah, the album art is super. It's a raven, I think. Yeah, it's a bird of some sort. You know, the inside is about the same.
Yeah.
There's a band picture, but you don't know who's in the band. And for the longest time, you didn't know who was in the band. I think they finally revealed it, but I don't know if there's anybody I know of. Yeah, all their albums have been really good, except this one was the most funeral of the batch, I think. Their songs got a little bit more formed and kind of adhered to more traditional concepts. But this here is very much an experimental Funeral Doom album that isn't so experimental. It repels the listener. The feel of it sucks you in and takes you to that funeral procession for sure. Yeah, that's a great pick, Marty. The only reason I didn't pull something by Skepticism is it's a band I've bought their catalog digitally. I don't have hard copies of their stuff, but yeah, I think I like Lead and Ether a little more than that one. It's that one's got kind of it has those same elements, but it also kind of like has this very epic grandeur on top of it at times. But Stormcrow Fleet is a really cool one too. Absolutely. And we nailed it. We're at the end.
Yay!
Andrew, thank you so much for joining us and bringing this interesting topic to our table for sure. It was great.
The pleasure is all mine.
Very
I
cool.
appreciate you guys having me. I had a blast talking about this stuff with you guys, and man, I'm just so happy that you got, you smelled what I was cooking, basically, as far as the idea goes. I'm just so happy that it translated, and it's just like, what is he talking about? Mystery, you totally got it. You absolutely got it, and I knew, just as I've had these experiences with these albums, I knew that every, true metal fan had these same experiences with different albums and could share. I was just happy that my idea translated via text, and you guys knew what I was talking about. No. You totally stepped up to it. It took me a minute to wrap my head around the concept, but I got there. It's been a fun one, and folks in the chat have had a lot of fun with it too. Folks have been commenting that there's lots of cool stuff that they're hearing about and wanting to check out. So thanks to everybody who's been participating in the chat, and I think you've got a lot of cool albums that Andrew has shown off here to definitely go do your homework this weekend and check out while you're doing things. I know I've got some I'm going to check out. While you're checking out bands, Nechochwen this year, new album. You got Ironflame, 3 great albums to choose from. New one coming. You got Brimstone Coven, 4 albums to choose from. Excellent. And of course, Icarus Witch, which has got working on a new one too.
Yep, the newest album features Andrew on vocals. They've got, I think, 3 others before them. They've been around for a long time, kicking it out, and more power to that too. Keeping with it, that's awesome. Keeping metal alive. And should we announce, Alan, who one confirmed guest coming up next month? Should we say that or wait? Let's hold off since it's a couple of weeks away, just to make sure nothing has to change on the schedule.
Keep it mysterious.
Exactly.
Nailed it.
Next week, we don't know who's going to be on yet. We got some irons in the fire, but you'll know when we know. And thank you again, everybody, for hanging out with us tonight. Totally cool. And if you missed the stream, check it. It'll be on the channel. We won't be killing it. So thanks again, everybody. You have a great night. That clown's going to haunt my dreams. I just know it. Son of a bitch.